Hello everyone, welcome to episode 165 of Floating Through Film. This week we continue the Ray series with, last week was the Madhabi Mukherjee week. This week is the Sharmila Tagore week, I guess you could say, with The Hero and Days and Nights in the Forest. Two movies that are actually similar with her, not just like as the actress, but like kind of her role, which is kind of how I'm going to talk about them, but I don't know, what are your guys'... let me introduce my co-host first here, Blake.
What's up?
And Luke.
Hello.
But before we get into each movie specifically, are there any general ideas that come to your head about why, like any similarities between these two, maybe specifically about her role? Just anything that comes to mind about your movie in general then, if nothing about that.
For me, it's like kind of just like the male, like, I don't know, very, like male ego maybe, I would say. Although I guess maybe like The Hero is more about like kind of like his like celebrity, like mythical status, but in a way it's almost like the destruction of like their, like, I don't know, worldviews, or just like who they are, like deconstructing them, I guess, in general.
Yeah.
That's kind of the main idea I got from both of these movies. But yeah, that's kind of what I noticed.
No, I think you kind of nailed it. What about you? Like, is there anything that comes to your head?
Yeah, definitely that. I mean, even with The Hero, is definitely still deconstructing the male ego, because he is a male superstar in India. And that's definitely what was deconstructed. It leads to a lot of different, like, readings, obviously, because, like, it's also just about movies and kind of, like, the history of movies, too, with, like, how movies started with, like, plays, and how, like, movies obviously stole a lot of, like, actors from that ring of entertainment as well, but it's definitely also about the deconstruction of the male ego and how stardom can, like, can do that, but... Days and Nights in the Forest I had never seen before. Really good movie. A lot going on there. On a first watch, it's way too hard.
I actually agree with you there. Yeah, it is really good, but yeah, it was a lot to take in, for sure.
I do wish it had a restoration, because it would look beautiful.
For sure.
It would look even more beautiful if it had one, honestly. But that one is there is, like I said, a lot going on, because there's 4 characters instead of just the one. like
it's like all the different, like, kind of like character quirks and relationships.
Yeah, because like each one kind of has like a different, basically, like, ego, you could say. He would be deconstructing, and each one has like a female companion, basically, that's helping him along with that deconstruction. But both really good movies though. The Hero I actually liked a little bit more, since I have seen that one before. I actually liked it a little bit more this time, just because before I hadn't seen that many movies, and now after watching a lot more movies, there's a lot more in this going on than I probably gave it credit for before. And in terms of her character in general, she's beautiful. And she plays these really smart and well-designed characters, specifically to, like, basically coax out these male tendencies in the male leads, basically, to the point that they realize sometimes what she's doing, but a lot of times she's doing it so subtly that just, like, makes them start to think of things unconsciously, almost. Like, it brings things unconsciously to mind from their past and stuff. But no, both really good movies though. Liked them a lot. So.
And well, actually, that's I'm glad you said that, because that's basically going to be my topic's going to be kind of short for this week, and then honestly we're going to talk more about Days and Nights in the Forest, because watching it this time, I like. It's one of my favorite Ray movies. But yeah, for like, is it both of your guys' first watches? I think
it is.
So it's one of the things. It is definitely it needs rewatches for sure. But just for one aspect that these two movies share in common is basically, like I said at the beginning, is Tagore. Her, basically the role she plays, and that's what kind of Devapriya Sanyal talks about in, like, both her books. Is Tagore's character basically what she calls is basically what she says is a moral beacon in the movie, in terms of, like, she says she's basically a non-character, and what that means is, like, she's kind of almost just like a reflection of, like, this is basically what you guys both touched on. And it's funny, so I asked you guys, what is Tagore, like, what is she in the movie? And I mean, Blake kind of mentioned more what she specifically does, but you guys both mentioned the male aspects of, like, actually that's why she's there, is you could say she's in a way like playing the role of the filmmaker in terms of, like, basically exposing the characters, you know, what their flaws are, you know, and like kind of what a modern cinema would try to do, you know, instead of like the filmmakers, it's her. It's like, in a way, how women expose like male fragilities, I guess, a way, and that's what we've been saying that a lot of race movies are about. But in these movies specifically, like even more than in like Charlotte and The Big City, what she talks about and why these movies are different is basically Tagore has no what you would call like character development or character growth. She's literally there as just like a what she says moral beacon, you know, like and you can say that like that's why I would say these movies aren't feminist in that way, because they're like in a way they're more about how male egos are exposed by women in modern roles in a way, I guess you could say. That's at least how I would read it, you know.
She's more akin to like a goddess.
I get
or like
at
an
least
angel
like
or something.
Yeah, so but at least there's not that kind of worship of a like.
No,
goddess.
I'm just saying like an angel of like visit from an angel.
I agree what you're
basically.
saying in terms of that, like a moral beacon is like how you say a goddess or an angel is in a way, but it's like a very Ray realistic way of doing that, you know, not a kind of like a traditional. No, it's not obviously not a goddess, even though he has a movie about how men make women into goddesses, which we didn't do. But let me read a quote that she says that I think is really good that describes both these movies. Let me just read it first. Quote, through a series of encounters with exceptional women, the men in the films are made to recognize truths about themselves, and after their self-images are gradually undermined, they are forced to come face to face with their real selves. And especially their self-images are gradually undermined, and that's basically the role she plays in both of these. It's like basically she's doing the undermining, you know, like we'll talk about the hero is like, she plays the role as journalist, but really she's like asking this guy questions that he doesn't want to be asked, you know, and like making him think about those kind of things. We'll talk about how well like, we'll talk about the hero in a second, but this is another thing she does where like maybe she generalizes too much, but I can see the kind of trends she's talking about where she says in most of cinema, especially in Hollywood cinema, or just like even you know, just most of normal formulaic cinema, I guess I would say, is and this is not a bad thing or anything, but in most stories she says both the male and female will have some kind of character growth, character change, you know. They're both, that's how we know they're characters. But she's, like I said earlier, Tagore's really like a non-character. It's really just the men that are undergoing these kind of changes, you know. And then the other thing she says that's similar about both these movies, which is it's always in the background of both of them. And I think definitely in The Hero, it's more so. Days and Nights, I'm actually not sure if he's actually criticizing as much, but the alcohol. It's like, if you notice in all of Ray's movies, like, he basically does, like, he never drank, and you can tell. Like, he basically saw it as, like, a moral weakness if he had to drink a lot, you know? Like, men trying to hide from, like, basically things they don't want to think about. You know, like the way she's a woman is exposing these, like, he's saying, like, alcohol does the opposite, you know?
Yeah, I would never.
People not. Yeah, no, we don't drink.
Yeah, no, of course not.
Yeah. But I do think alcohol is used for that very much by a lot of people. You know, it's an easy way to just not think about things.
But I use it right, you know?
Yeah. Well, the same way cinema can be used, you know?
Yeah.
We use it right always.
Of course.
We use everything right always. No, I'm kidding. But he definitely is, like, Ray's obviously very much, you can tell he's, like, that's why on Days and Nights, I don't know, there's some scenes where, like, they're just in the forest, like, drunk, I kind of enjoy. Like, that's what I like, but at the same time, that's when they get embarrassed again, so, I don't know, like, you can definitely see he wasn't a heavy drinker and stuff. He definitely didn't drink, and, like, that's another part of these movies, too, that's just in the background. I kind of like how he makes, in The Hero, that really old guy. I think he's supposed to be like the Ray character in a way. Like, he's kind of making himself sound like the old guy. Like, he kind of sees, he's self-aware, you know, like, maybe some of his criticism are like old sounding, you know, where he's like talking about John Ford and stuff.
It's funny because like the ending of The Hero is like basically the ending of The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. It's like a very similar ending. Because remember in Man Who Shot Liberty Valance where it's like when the legend becomes fact, print the legend.
You're saying they go back to the legend world?
Basically, well, and like she tears up the paper.
Oh.
In The Hero.
Oh.
And basically, like, I'm not going to expose this about you.
Yeah,
like, you're going to remain kind of like this, like, star, like this mythical kind of star figure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also, they're I mean, in a way,
I
like
thought about that.
it is kind of Fordian in a way too, with how like he uses kind of like the. I guess people maybe would say like how Ford used like the Brechtian stuff. I'm not like an expert on Brecht, but like kind of like the use of flashbacks, or at least like a current moment, and then using flashbacks to kind of expose this person. Ford does that a lot with like the long gray line, Ford Apache.
Are those done through single characters? Are those told through single characters? I don't know, because he does mention Ford in the movie. So I wonder
I don't know.
Those
I don't know. What do you mean by single characters?
Like, because the flashbacks we get are from are all about the single guy.
Yeah.
His kind of kind of basically showing how he got to where he is now.
Yeah.
I don't know how Ford uses his flashbacks. I'm trying to remember.
I need to think about it more, but anyway.
But that's basically all I had. Like for both these movies, we'll talk about more about Days and Nights, but we'll talk about the hero first. I want to just mention some stuff I'd read. First is, if you guys didn't know, the main actor in this movie, Uttam Kumar, he was at the time like the basic leading Bengali actor.
Oh, really?
And like, so Ray wanted to. He basically said because he wanted to work. He said he had read a quote somewhere where like if you're going to make a movie about a matinee idol, you have to cast a matinee idol. So he's like, okay, I have to work with like a leading star.
Oh, shit.
And it's funny, like I found some different quotes where like I forgot, I didn't really write anything down, but like basically Ray like didn't have much respect for him as like a person, really, like in terms of like intellectually, like he's like you could tell he wasn't thinking much about the movie, that kind of thing. Like not hating on him, but like just telling, like compared to so much of Chatterjee, who he loved working with and stuff, you could tell. Let me read this quote. I do have one quote where he's comparing the two actors, because he said Chatterjee is more like the way you would say is the art film crowd, I guess. So he said, quote, "Certainly the intelligent section of the crowd, particularly the girls, the college girls, would prefer Soumitra to Uttam, but they were in a minority, I'm afraid. Uttam could produce acceptable acting even from bad material, just by playing himself. Whereas with Soumitra, who was much more intelligent, given bad material, he turns out bad performance, because his distaste for the material shows." So I guess he's kind of paying him a compliment too, in a way. But he's saying the different types of actors, basically, and you can tell, like, obviously which one he likes more. But so you could say he's like, in a way, in this movie, he's trying to do counter to what he normally wants to do. In a way, what that is, he's like the guy that wrote the book, The Inner Eye on Ray, Andrew Robinson, he says like Ray's trying to basically explore the psychology of someone he doesn't like, which is like this movie star. It's like basically everything is antithesis to his type of cinema, you know?
Yeah.
Even though he does like Hollywood classic cinema and stuff, it's obviously not this type of movies he makes. It's funny because the stuff I like about the movie most is like the stuff that's not with him. As I watch this, even though I do like it,
what do you mean?
I do like. What I mean by that is, here, let me read this quote. He says, quote, "The other passengers in the train who interact with them all help to explain a state of mind, without one's feeling for a moment that they have been put there by Ray for the purpose." And what he's saying is basically like all the characters are still kind of reflecting like how he's thinking, and I like that part of the movie more than just the direct flashbacks where it almost feels too literal, you know. Even though I do like the part where like the theater director is going off on like film actors and stuff, like no control, like
it's hilarious.
Some of the stuff like I like, it's interesting, especially if you didn't know it like anything about the theater and cinema and stuff. But to me, it just feels too literal a lot of the times, and especially the way it's used, the flashback, where like those would hate this, you know, where it's like the which I'm not saying that's because that means it's bad. It just feels too literal to me, where it's like too easy. We're getting kind of the moral.
Isn't it this influenced by 8.5?
I could see that.
Because didn't you say like apparently like his sunglasses or something was like.
I could see. Did I say?
Like
they always
like
reminded
got
me.
Didn't you say like Ray? There's Ray like said he got it from like.
Did I say that?
You told me like.
To me, I said it reminded me of that. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I read that. I'm just forgetting now.
So wait. So do you think like 8.5 has like the same problem? You think, or like?
Yeah, maybe.
Curious, like.
I don't know why I haven't rewatched 8.5. It just
it's long.
Even though because I love Inter Vista.
Yeah. I don't know. I kind of like the. I also really like the flashback where it's like about like him not taking like a political stance or whatever.
Yeah.
I like that part too, because like the way it's shot as well.
I don't know. Like to me, the messages are too direct. it's like we're getting this flashback. It's just put there, like, and then the message is it's just so obvious. Like you can even say it right now, right? It's just like, oh, he gave up his politics to like become a star, or like he gave up the theater to become a star. Like, I like this. Like I mean, I guess I can talk about it now. Like my favorite stuff is like the stuff with the businessman who's like trying to entice the other businessman to get this deal or whatever, and he's like using his wife. Because like that one's way more like I guess subtle in terms of what he's saying about even like about the film industry and stuff, like how people use their wives and stuff to. There's one flashback where we get that girl trying to basically as much as India would allow him to show up like this woman trying to seduce him in his house and not to get a role, you know, which is obviously even still relevant today, like how men use the film industry and stuff. But like he's comparing it to what that guy's using his wife and like to get a business deal. But then when his wife is like, I want to be an actress, he's like, oh wait, no, that'd be insane, you know, and just kind of like comparing like how basically men view women a lot of times, and like Devapriya Sanyal in the book, I forget which book it was, but she talks about how let me find the quote. Okay, yeah. What is particularly significant here in Nayak is that when Ray chooses to portray his other women characters in stark contrast to Aditi, who's Tagore, they are all trying to get in on a world where men set the rules. Which basically she's saying is like all the other women characters in the film like are actually trying to get into this kind of patriarchal system. They're kind of bought in. You know, she's the only one that's kind of more detached from it. Like I said, more like outside of the film, I guess. And that kind of makes the film interesting, like in the real world where it's actually happening in this real time. What you could tell Ray was really trying to be like, how do I make a film on a train, you know, and keep it there. And like Andrew Robinson talks about this too, where he's like, it's still a good movie, but it's not like he's like, is that really the best solution? Just to add flashbacks, you know? Because it's like, then to me, it's like you're still kind of losing the real time aspect. You know,
there need to be more dream sequences instead.
That is where I'm into, like the flashback versus the dream. I do like some of the dreams too.
The dreams are fun.
Yeah, like I like the dream where they like walk into the forest with the lights and stuff. And it's like visually like it's visually because it's restored. Criterion restored it. Yeah. It's visually a great movie too.
Yeah, I guess that's 8.5 is where I haven't rewatched 8.5 in like so long. Well, I guess they are more dreams than 8.5 too.
There are.
I think maybe also differentiates a bit from those two movies. Like they're much more like surrealist, I guess.
So what do you think that this movie is about? Let me put it that way. Because 8.5 maybe has a similar theme.
I mean, I kind of said it already. Like just like the idea of like I don't know, like the star myth, I guess. Kind of more what I got out of it, at least just like I don't know, like the stuff that kind of like gets forgotten, I guess, or at least it's like, or maybe just like becoming like the way people perceive you versus who you actually are, kind of like the gap
crisis
between
of self, basically.
Yes. To me, what makes this movie, and maybe I wish he would even go even further on this if he was going to make it about this star myth that you're talking about, which is definitely what I think it is like how a person themselves has to forget it. You know, to get where they are. Yeah. Where it's like, you know, we see this guy in the past who seems like a very different guy. Like you said, the politics and the theater and all this. Seems like a very different guy who ended up here. I think that's the critical part Ray's trying to say is like, if you become this kind of star, you have to give up this type of way of approaching art, you know. And I don't know, maybe it doesn't feel as critical enough. Like you
have to play it safe, you know.
Yeah. And that's why they keep approaching him as like nightmares and like... And like, I never even realized this the first time, but like, he basically almost commits suicide until she comes back.
Yeah,
again, you know?
Definitely.
So it does get pretty dark, but...
he might have committed suicide if she left before he did. Because she tells him to leave before she does. Because she thinks the same thing.
Like at the end of that conversation too? Yeah, that conversation. I didn't realize that, damn. That is true. And like the pills and stuff, like it is a dark, like, it's like, this where Ray is like very, like, you have to, like, that's where he's at his best to me. It's like, they seem very on the surface simple, but then if you like look at or read into it, you're like, damn, like it's dark or it's really funny or like, like when he's like talking about cocaine, like shooting up cocaine and stuff, but he's like tells the girl like, I have to take pills to go to sleep and just like really small stuff. Like you can tell he's trying to suppress stuff, you know. But yeah, I think we can go ahead and get into it. Actually, no, never mind. I'll mention it now. I forgot. I was going to mention at the beginning of the podcast, and I forgot. I think you asked me last week, did Wes Anderson say anything about Ray?
Oh, yeah.
And I actually found an article about it.
Oh, for real?
Well, like, so he said this in an interview he did about The Life Aquatic. So this was actually before Darjeeling, where he said, Ray is one of my favorites. His films feel like novels to me. He draws you very close to his characters, and his stories are almost always about people going through major internal transition. My favorites are the Calcutta trilogy of The Adversary, Company Limited, and The Middleman, which are very adventurous and inventive stylistically, and Days and Nights in the Forest, which completely captured my attention when I was a teenager, with soulful troublemakers as heroes. I think Charlotta is one of his most beautiful films, and also the Apu films. And then,
and also the album. He's like,
that's in all of his movies. No, but first of all, you know he's a true hit.
I was like,
Ray had with the Calcutta trilogy first, and he said that before in 2004 too.
And he's like the Apu trilogy. You know, I'll say that to please people.
Yeah.
Just so they know I've seen them.
No, and then I didn't realize he also dedicated Darjeeling Unlimited to Ray.
I think I remember that.
Because, like, you know, they had the soundtracks, right?
Yeah.
Thing, but I didn't realize that too. No, because he talked about like how Ray was a big influence on all of his movies, not just Darjeeling, which is interesting.
Yeah.
But more Days and Night too. I can see, like, obviously, the Asteroid City scene.
Your claim to fame.
My claim. No, but we can go ahead and talk about getting the hero. I do like the music in this one a lot too, especially the opening, the main theme of this one. Like,
honestly, yeah.
What we get as I think he's getting, the first scene is like he's basically getting ready to leave. I kind of like this is where I'm like, I love where Ray, just like simple decision Ray does when he shoots stuff is like, the way we get introduced to him is like just like these close-ups of like different aspects of his body before we actually, almost like he's creating the star, you know, different aspects of the star, you know, like we see him like
it's like
on
a
his
superhero
shoe.
type,
yeah,
like,
that kind of thing, you know, building the star myth through framing, which is what cinema does. And then we learn like this is where like this is the movie is kind of slow too. This kind of, honestly, I feel like he could have just started the movie in the train. I honestly feel like he might have, he probably could have got away with that. Because we're kind of learning like how much importance he is.
I just like the idea also just like setting the movie like a lot in the train.
Yeah, no, like that's why I love about Days and Nights in the Forest.
Like all the different like
they start in the forest and it leaves out of the forest. You know, there's like no.
Just like, but like I like all the different compartments and stuff in the train.
Yeah,
it's a cool setting.
It is.
Yeah.
He does a good job of Ray's also good at framing these tight spaces. Like you could say that's the best part of this opening scene too, is him just shooting Kumar like when he's talking on the phone to that girl that calls him and stuff.
I mean, I think one of the best shots in the movie is in this opening scenes with it, like the close up with the cigarette, the sunglasses.
Yeah.
It's a great shot.
when that girl calls him. Yeah. That's what I was saying to Fellini. Kind of reminds me of the Fellini shot in 8.5.
Yeah. Oh, I can definitely see that. Yeah.
I don't know if I told you that reminded me of 8.5.
I thought you said Ray
specifically said.
I thought you said Ray
specifically
said it. Yeah.
I don't know. Google it while we're talking about it. Just Google something.
Sorry.
Something.
Ray.
It's like a ChatGPT prompt. I don't know. Like
the hero Fellini.
Yeah. But then basically we learn he's a star. He's gotten in a fight previously, but after that he gets on the train, which is I don't know if he's commenting that he must not be as big of a star as we thought, but because he has to share or do they say why
he's a
he
big
has
star.
Why does he share a train compartment? Why doesn't he get his own?
I'm not sure.
That's what confuses me. But I don't know if it's because it's last minute or something. Maybe did they say that and I just forgot? But
maybe it might have been just a throwaway line. But he definitely is a big star though. Yeah, he's like, I think he's the biggest in Bengal.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. That's what I was saying. Like that's why Ray cast him, because he literally was like that.
Yeah.
He's trying to use that image.
It's cool that he cast the actual leading actor in Bengal.
Yeah.
For the movie. Because I wouldn't have known that obviously, but
yeah. This is where he meets that old guy. This is my favorite guy, this old guy who comes in. He's telling him how he's opposed to. He says, "I'm opposed to talkies on principle, except for How Green Was My Valley."
Except for How Green Was My Valley.
Oh yeah.
And when I first watched this movie, I didn't even know How Green Was My Valley.
No, I think I was the same way. Yeah.
And then he's like, "But as a rule, films are bad." Yeah, this is what I was saying. This might be the Ray stand-in too, because he's like, as a rule, film actors drink, and he's like talking about. Like that's basically how it shows like a lack of discipline for film actors and stuff like that. But then we meet we kind of get these long shots of just like it was at the beginning of meeting the characters without actually them talking to of like the I guess it's a family with the business executive and the daughter who's sick. There's the other
and fans of him.
Yeah, they're fans of him. There's the other younger business exec who just got married.
Okay, I couldn't find anything about like specifically like the quote, but apparently 8.5 won a grand prize at the 3rd Moscow International Film Festival, and Ray was on the jury committee.
Oh, okay.
With Stanley Kramer was also on it. Okay.
Yeah. Interesting jury.
Yeah. Yeah, that happened, I guess.
But then, yeah, like, I was kind of interested in the characters. And then, yeah, the business exec with the wife. And then, obviously, our star. And then, Sharmila Tagore, we're going to meet in a little bit. It's funny, there's, like, a quote of the business exec.
Is he, like, the ad executive, though, also? Like, because instead, not just, like, a business executive with a young wife. He's literally, like, an ad executive.
I think you're
with
right.
A young
He's
wife.
like the ad executive, yeah.
Because that makes, I mean,
But he says, like, I forgot what he says when he introduces his company. He's like, we do a variety of things or something like that. Because he says he's a conglomerate or something. I forgot exactly. But, but this older business exec, I forgot what company he runs. But he says, he's, like, basically hating on Indian movies. Where he's, like, he's basically showing his internationalism, I guess. Because he's like, oh, when I go to America, they have, like, great movies and stuff. Oh, yeah, and he's like, Japan is also growing rapidly.
Yeah.
But he's like, after all, there's nothing to beat American movies. And that's funny. It's funny because like he's telling this to the Bengali movie star right to his face. He's like, in our country, our motto seems to be produce more and produce rubbish. And it's a great cut to his face too.
Yeah.
First of all, because he's saying it in English, so it's kind of just like digging it even more, like to into a Bengali star. But like, but it's like the cut to his face too. It's just so funny. And then his reaction to. He said that's why it's become so important. That's why family planning has become so important. Which, if you think about, it's a crazy joke. But then the next scene is this is where we see Sharmila Tagore introduced. She's sitting with I guess she's friends. Oh no, she's trying to sell her magazine to this old business exec and his wife. And this is where we're gonna learn that he's also very. No, this is a different guy. This husband. It's not the business exec. Is it?
Okay.
Is it?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I thought that their face.
No, it's a different guy. It's a different guy. Yeah. Never mind. Yeah, she's selling a magazine to them. And that's when they, as she's selling it, he walks by, and then they're going to get this, like, this meeting that's going to happen for the rest of the movie. They have this first conversation because she says she wants to go get an autograph for her cousin or something. And I don't know, are you guys buying this? Like, is that I guess she seems serious. Like, she just wants to get an autograph for her cousin, nothing more. Yeah. But I don't know. I feel like maybe
she's a reporter.
Yeah.
She's lying.
Yeah, I feel like she might be lying.
A journalist of her.
Yeah. But you can tell, like, even she's like saying she doesn't like really Bengali movies that much. She says she's like a modern. She runs like a modern women's magazine and stuff, and they don't really write about movies, so she really wouldn't even want to interview her.
Because I think her friends sitting there are trying to get her, like, they're encouraging her to interview them for the magazine.
Yeah, because she's like basically like to me, like, that's why it's like she's like a race stand in a lot of ways. Because at this point she's like she's talking about the roles he plays, and he's like, oh, he's not just a player, he's a champion, a tennis champion, swimming champion, dancer, singer, leading progressive, top of his class, great lover. He's like, is that really realistic? And that's when the husband, who they're sitting with, he's like, you know what he is? He's a modern day Krishna, and all these ladies are secret devotees, which is, kind of interesting comparison of like what a modern movie star is.
Yeah, it is.
But yeah, that's like, then we get some more shots. There's some good shots of just like the empty train hallways, which I like. And then this is where we, the business, I'll call him the young businessman, I guess. And his wife, he tells her he promises to buy her a new pearl necklace and stuff. So he's basically setting up how, I guess she's very materialistic in a way.
Yeah.
I love how he introduces himself to the older business guy, because he's like, I'm more likely to know of you than any film star, and the guy's like shocked. He's like, oh really? Like me? Like it's kind of to me, I was like, oh, this guy's kind of a loser, but and then like the way that the guy talks, it's just so funny. Like the way he announces his name. I think his name is British, because he's like, it rhymes British. Like,
British.
And then we kind of, I don't know, he doesn't reveal himself. I don't know if he's actually conservative or liberal or not, because he's like, the older guy asked him, he's like, are you conservative or liberal? He's like, everyone young in our days leans a little bit towards the left. But then he's like, I currently stand only on private enterprise. So it's like, I don't know, I can't tell. But then, Sharmila Tagore decides to flip a coin to whether or not she's going to interview him, and that's when she decides to actually go interview the star. And I kind of like how he talks about because this is kind of where we're getting the crux of the movie is we're about to get into his flashbacks and everything.
Yeah.
But I like his reasoning too. You could say is of why he wants to create. He doesn't want to, like I said at the beginning, why David Sanyal said reporters usually don't ask introspective questions to film stars. And why is that? It's because, like he says, the quote he says is, quote, "You see, people like me shouldn't talk too much. We're creatures of light and shadow. It's best not to expose these bodies of flesh and blood too clearly to the public eye." And I do think there's something about like a film star having to like keep a mythology about him, you know?
Definitely.
And I don't know, maybe that's why like social media like gives us too much access to people where it's like hard to create a mythology for someone. I don't know. Or maybe
It makes it
like
easier sometimes too, though.
Okay.
Because it makes it like, I don't know, I feel like a lot of modern day stars, they can control their image a lot easier now with social media.
Yeah. No, that's true. That's true.
You can definitely get caught a lot easier doing things you're not supposed to.
But I don't know. I still think there's something to like back in the day, if you saw a film star, you usually, maybe except for if they were like on a TV interview or in a newspaper, you were just generally seeing them on screen. But now if you see a film star, you're actually seeing them a lot of times, not mainly on screen. Like when I say on screen, I mean on cinema screen.
No, yeah.
Now the screens are seeing them mostly are not off screen. In terms of like interviews or on Twitter, social media, that's how a lot of people interact with stars. It's not actually like through the on screen as much, you know. And that's why stars now are not necessarily even on-screen cinema stars. They're like TikTokers or like YouTubers. But I do think there's something about the mythology part of like you're saying, it's still you can still create the mythology with social media. You know,
Yeah.
It's not just because you have all this access. It means it's like a true access or whatever. But yeah, no, that's why basically that's his reasoning. I guess Aiden Have is similar about this idea of like who's the like guy behind the guy, I guess, or like what's the real guy, you know?
Oh yeah,
You know,
for sure.
I mean, we just
it doesn't have a woman. I don't think it. Maybe it uses women generally to expose them, but it doesn't have a single woman.
Yeah, it's not a single woman. Yeah.
Yeah. I have to watch 8.5 again. It's probably been.
I probably
since
should
the
as
first
well.
podcast.
I need to as well. No, I haven't seen since the podcast either.
I haven't either.
Damn, all three of us. Okay. No, then the star goes and talks to the old guy again really quickly, and he's like asking him like why he has to drink and stuff, and this is where he's like, it's curious because like Ray makes, I think what I was saying, this might be another Ray standing character, but it's funny he makes him like such a old guy that no one's gonna take seriously. Because the guy says no nation can become great without any without a moral sense.
Yeah.
And I do think he's kind of criticizing like basically the film star, you know, like not taking him seriously. You know, like of course this guy's not gonna take him what he's saying seriously. You know, about the drinking and everything. And he even leaves like making a joke. He's like, he tells him he's gonna get a cocaine injection like as he's leaving, just to like offend him. But then we get another cut to the two business execs talking again, And this is where the old guy, the older one, he's about to leave. He's just tired of talking to this guy. He's about to leave, and right when he's leaving, the wife comes up to talk to the younger guy, to her husband, and the guy's like, "Oh," he decides to stay all of a sudden.
It's like there's more you can offer me.
No, this guy's he's doing it subtly, but he's such an asshole too, because you can tell this young husband, this is you could say he's being progressive, but in a really sleazy asshole way, because he's you could tell this. I think this is where the earlier scene about them talking about whether they're conservative, he's conservative or liberal, actually kind of comes back up, because you can tell he's clearly conservative about his wife. He wants his wife to be a housewife, because he's oh, she's the perfect housewife, and he's bragging about her. And then and the old guy, the next thing he says is young ladies, and this is also another thing about Ray, the way he shoots this is so funny, because every time he cuts to the old guy, it's a close up and he's only looking at her. Every cut. He doesn't even look at the husband, and it's funny because the husband's looking back and forth as he's cutting. And and because he's the young ladies, they're doing all types of things these days. After he says she's the perfect housewife.
They hunt tigers, fly airplanes.
Yeah. That's what, he's being progressive, but of course he has ulterior motives, you could say, I guess.
Yes.
No, the way it's shot too. That's why I'm it's kind of a simple scene, but it's the way it's shot just so funny, and the way it ends too, with the camera just kind of floats over both, and it ends on the young husband just thinking about it. but then we get the I think this is when he goes back to the room. This is another kind of a subtle. I don't know if you guys even noticed it this time, but he goes back to the room, and we already know that the daughter's sick, and he should know this.
Yeah.
But the first thing he does, he lights a cig, and the mom's reaction of just looking at him, she's looking at him in disgust, not noticing. Side eye. Yeah, so the side eye is crazy, but he's not of course he doesn't notice at all.
Yeah.
And that's when he he passes out, and we get this dream sequence of the money dream sequence.
Yeah.
Where he's
I like the way this is shot.
Yeah, I like the way it's shot. I like the kind of music too. There's this bell sound or something. That's what I'm saying. It feels a little too on the nose. Where we kind of get the message exactly of first he's kind of happy with all the money, then all of a sudden we see all these hands appear, and they grab him.
It's cool. No, because the phones start ringing too.
That is true, and that's where we see his theater.
Time's
teacher.
up. No, I'm joking.
Yeah. This is where I was is Ray maybe trying to? Because this is where he's this is where we see the character have his kind of crisis, where he's okay, why did I just have this fucking dream?
Yeah.
Where I'm is he trying to actually show maybe this is how dumb actors are, or this actor is anyway, that the kind of film star is he really can't interpret this himself. He can't see what's going on with the money. He's because he has to ask her what he's basically I had this dream,
It's I don't know what it means.
yeah. You really can't see it. No, but because he basically wakes up.
The dream is cool. The guy, how the guy's face is panned to in the dream.
The way it's shot, I really
like
like it too. I just it feels a little on the nose in terms of
Sure. It is.
But yeah, no, I'm not disagreeing with that. But this is maybe one of my favorite parts of the movie is this little quick scene next, because it cuts back to the young exec telling the wife, because he's realized now that this old guy likes his wife, and so they're back in their train car, and what he says to her is this calls for some acting in real life. And he's the way he's using this his voice too, the English voice, and he's so nasally, just so funny to me. He's all you have to do is be a little nice. And he's telling her it's just a game. It's just a strategy and stuff. And the reason I'm saying it, especially that quote where he's this calls for some acting in real life, because it's gonna come back later where she wants to be an actress, and he's just so opposed to it, where he's basically just told her it's okay to act now, to get what you want.
To get what I want.
Actually, that's a very good point. Exactly. Yeah. Just that's true. And honestly, sorry, go ahead.
No, there's also just this random guy that's always in this room that doesn't play a part in the movie until the very end.
The worldwide vocal.
Yeah, they're just it's just always in here, just doing nothing basically.
The www. I do like that guy. Honestly. The way he says
I mean, he's
WW.
funny. He's funny. He's just always in here though until the very end. Whenever you realize like what,
I'm still not sure exactly why he's there. Yeah, because we do see the young guy get excited when he's like he has like 50,000 to spend on ads, and he's like, oh, okay. That's when he changes because he's like, oh, I really don't get what this guy's saying. No, but because especially that quote, he's like, this calls for some acting in real life. Is this kind of not related, but it made me think of like I've been thinking about this in general of like what is a film star? Because I just said this like the way we interact with film stars now is mostly not on screen. You know, at least for a lot of people, it's like they watch the press junkets or the trailers or like social media or like they do podcast interviews or all this stuff they do before the movie comes out or after, and like or like example was like when Anyone But You came out. Like what Glenn Powell and Sydney Sweeney were doing to basically like sell their like they were having a relationship, where it's like
the PR
literally this quote that calls for acting in real life. To me, like that's what a lot of actors do, like like that's why they're getting paid as film stars, to act in real life. There's really nothing like.
I think that's why the movie's interesting.
Yes, that's why the movie is interesting.
Because he realizes that at a certain point.
And that's why I love this stuff too.
Yeah.
Where he's like, it's not only in movies. We do this all the time. Like in real life, he's asking his wife to do it. But he doesn't want his wife to do it in movies. And it made me think of too, like especially the Glenn Powell stuff, like because I'm like, how do these people like? I always think about Terrence Malick, like. How he doesn't want to do anything. He doesn't want to do any press or anything. Like that's how filmmakers should be more. Like if they do, like they should want to. I just like it when they talk more in depth.
Yeah, but I guess
like this stuff what they're getting at press junk. It's like what is this shit?
They have
like,
to make money.
How do they even like? But like so, they're that's what it is. Like this is what they're getting paid to do. When Glenn Powell gets this like $2 million acting contract, it's not for what they're doing in the movie. Because they're not doing much. Like it's all this shit. It's like they have to go to all these press junkets and get filmed for 5 hours and ask like these dumbass questions every by these like. Different YouTube channels and everything. It's crazy how much work they actually do. But it's like the work they do is not on screen. It's not when they're filming for like 3 weeks with all these CG heavy sets. Okay, it's like
Anyone But You is a good movie though.
Okay, yeah, but still, it was probably a CG heavy set or whatever.
I don't think it was
maybe
that
not.
CG
Maybe
heavy.
not.
I think like the only actor that can say anything opposed to anything you just said about actors is Tom Cruise.
But he still does a lot of selling of his movie.
He does a lot of the selling, but he's very particular about his image and what he's selling in these. So,
but that's what I'm saying. What a film actor does, it's not just the stuff they're acting on screen. It's everything that do. Like how self-aware Kumar is in the movie. That quote I mentioned at the beginning, where he has to be aware of it even in public, and even when the like that curtain comes up and when they're on the train, and he just doesn't care, right? Because he's used to it. Like it's not like. He still kind of has to be on screen in a way always, Yeah. And she's obviously like a normal person, so she's like not used to it. But I think Ray's like kind of thing is like, I wish he would explore more. It's like, does he think there's anything under there? I don't know if he ever answers the question of like, does he actually think there's a soul under there, or is he like he just kind of he goes back to his film world and kind of kind of forgets everything happened on the train. Like his whole train just like a dream to him in a way, Yeah. Because he's even like, I'm never gonna see you again. Like we're not gonna talk to each other. Like,
I think one of the more interesting questions is why did she rip up the interview at the end.
That is I do think
because I think that's more important than like whatever happens with him. Because like to me, it's like she might understand that humanity kind of needs this type of Krishna figure basically to look at.
See, now you sound like a. Man Who Shot at Liberty Valance ending.
Okay, yeah.
Where he's like, people need the myth. Or The Dark Knight.
Yeah,
that's The Dark Knight ending.
It is The Dark Knight ending, actually. Another episode, god damn it.
Oh my god.
Counter, ticket.
And Blake agreed with me, and that's also...
I mean, it is, but that's... I mean,
Shot at Liberty Valance I feel like is more apt for a comparison, though.
I mean, Ford did get it from Nolan, so...
What?
You just saying shit. Alright, but like, yeah, like when the... Yeah.
Well, okay, so we're basically at the part where, okay, he's had this first dream, and now he's going to her, and he's like, so like, do you know anything about dreams? And she's like, whatever's, basically the usual stuff, whatever's in one's subconscious mind, one's beliefs and fears, often turns up in one's dreams. And that's when he's like, okay, he decides to kind of tell her his background via these flashbacks. And this is where I'm like, this is where, like, especially watching this time, I'm like, even if you're going to use the flashback, some of them feel a little too dry now. It's like, okay, we got the point of the flashback. It's a, we're getting, like, he used to be a more serious theater actor, and now he's not, that kind of thing. But I still like some of them.
I like the dialogue scenes where it's the theater director or whatever just saying things like how movies are wrecking the actor, basically.
So that's this first one. So first we're gonna meet I actually like some of these roles we're meeting. That's the only interesting thing. Like, you could say that's the kind of another person that uses flashbacks a little bit maybe differently is Citizen Kane, or like Wells too, but where he'll use these kind of like older roles to like in the flashbacks.
Yeah, like older
like I'm trying to think, like in Citizen Kane, like the flashback, when they do flashback, like these different character types kind of represent people. Even Citizen Kane, even Kane himself kind of does.
Yeah, I can see.
But like in this one is more specific. Like we're getting first the theater. He's almost like taking us to the modern day film star. So like first it's like the theater director actor kind of relationship. And this story says, a film actor is nothing but a puppet, a doll, a puppet in the hands of the director, of the cameraman, of the sound recordist, of the fellow who cuts it all up and sticks it back together.
He's not wrong.
He's not. He sounds like Rossanian right there. But this is that's the difference though, right? Like in a theater, the actor gets to cut himself. Even if the director tells him to do everything. It's almost like, to me, theater's more like coaching in basketball, where it's like, yeah, the coach can tell a player can do something, but at the end of the day, the player is the one who chooses on the court live, right, what they're going to do, and that's who they're watching live. But in a film, like he says, like, there's all these post stuff that has to happen after the actor even does his thing, and the actor has to wait with the rest of us to see what's going to be on screen and what's not going to be on screen.
This is why whenever we did like Kitano, his movies are so interesting because he's obviously all four.
Well, that's what makes
and
every
he's very
Chaplin,
aware of all four, but
Chaplin. That's what makes every
exactly. Like all the actor directors that do and editors that do everything themselves are like really interesting to me.
Yes. Yeah, especially adding that.
Because Satyajit Ray he's very aware of every role in his movie, even if he's not an actor. Obviously, he's very aware of all these roles and what he's doing to them also. And
honestly, now that I'm just thinking about this, like, this is not insulting the actor, but no, it's good. Like, what the actor is aware of, what the actor has to be aware of, is their image now, like what Kumar is in public. How their image in public, not necessarily how this individual movie is going to come out and the editing in this movie, or like how they're, how much their face is going to be on screen in this scene or whatever. Like, even though they are concerned about that stuff, they're more concerned. What they're aware of is other things. Like, that's why, like, a press release for an actor of, they're going to be working with this director can be a huge thing, too. Not even, like, if people didn't watch the movie. Yeah. Like, this actor's working with Scorsese, like, they're a serious actor. And then it's like, no one even watches the movie, but they're a serious actor now. Or, like, The Rock with the Safdies, or something like that.
Yeah. What movie is he in with the Safdies?
That's coming out this year.
One
of the
Benny Safdie.
Oh, it's Benny.
Okay, I was like, wait, what?
Oh, it's Benny. No, you're the one who thinks Josh is the good one.
I'm running for Josh, I think. I mean, it might be.
Is it because he looks like the more nerdier one, or? Is it,
well, I just have more.
Like, what are you basing this on, basically? It's because he's not the actor, and you're judging like the actor's probably.
No, it's just our taste in film are more similar. I think. Like, he likes Cassavetes a lot.
Oh, okay.
He likes Piala a lot.
Because I've been seeing some joke tweets about the Coen Brothers ones, because one of the Coen Brothers had a new trailer come out.
Yeah.
And they're like, we can tell which one is the good one, which one.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Or like one of them was like, we can tell which one was inspired by Fellini, which one was inspired by like I forgot the other bad director they named, but they're like, we can tell which one was which. Or something.
Oh damn.
So I'm like, I wonder if this is one of those situations you're talking about.
I think Benny actually likes Bresson a lot though.
I'm a Benny.
I think his like favorite film is like A Man Escaped or whatever.
Oh, okay.
I mean, we'll see how much he's moving the camera. Well, I'll just
damn, you're gonna be gatekeeping Bresson fandom.
I mean, that brings us back to 8.5. The director of this week just camera like a broom.
Oh my god! All right, we're all right.
I don't even know if that's about 8.5, but
It's probably like Renoir or something, and then you're gonna be
No.
imagine it's like
No,
it's like comes out it's about Renoir or something, and then like Dane looks like an idiot. But he's been like
There's no way.
using
Even
it.
though, no.
You're gonna critique Renoir right now.
No, I'm saying there's no way you can say it about
Renoir moves his camera a lot, especially in rules of the game.
When does he sweep his camera?
In Rules of
Like
the
a
Game.
broom, like Fleeny.
Like you sweep a room like this. This is how you sweep a room in a circular motion.
I mean, you can. It depends on what corner you're trying to get in.
Alright, let's move on.
Okay, let's get back to
Let's move
yeah,
on.
yeah.
This is already the dumbest conversation we've ever had.
Okay, so the second flashback is well, this first we see the mentor, his theater mentor, die, and maybe that's another hint. Is like, I don't know, maybe he would have stayed if this mentor didn't die, and he's like, that's because he's like, I'm not gonna do this film unless you let me, and the guy's like, I'm not letting you, and so it's kind of implied he only did the film after this guy died in the first place. I don't know if he still would have done it or not, but there's that quote where it's like, I like the shot too, where it kind of like, it's like a zoom in on this fire that's behind him, and it kind of changes focus as it comes on to his face, and he's like, he's thinking about the puppets quote, and he's like, Brando, Bogart, Paul Mooney, are they all puppets?
Yeah.
I don't know, are they? No. Are they? Maybe.
Yes. Maybe it depends on the movie.
Yeah, it does.
But yeah, it's tough to say. Because, like, for example, like, Nicholson...
No, it does depend on the movie, 100%.
In The Passenger, probably a puppet. More of a puppet, at least.
Wait, who?
Him in The Passenger. But, like, let's say, like, him...
But see, that's actually almost the exact opposite case, I would say.
Really?
It's where you're actually using the... Well, yeah, in a puppet, but it's in a, like... This is where the actor, to me, is the best, where... I love this Ray quote. I think I read it last week about the Passion of Joan of Arc. Where he's like, it's a performance that has nothing at the theater in it. Where it's hard for us to, like... That's where we think of acting a lot of times as theatrical, right?
Yeah.
But to me, there is something about acting that's just a cinema type of acting, where, like, you just trust your body and your face, and you kind of just, like, let the audience, like, kind of understand how people view you. And, like, to me, Jack Nicholson's really good in The Passenger like that. It's just, like...
Okay.
I don't know, like, he's so good at just understanding, like... I don't know, he's, like, got this kind of sleaziness to him, but, like, sweatiness. And, like, he's good at project. You're like cinema. You should project yourself onto people more than theatrical, where it's like more expressionistic, you know.
Yeah.
But like, there's a lot of like I don't know. He's just very, and especially there's a clash because of Antonio's style too.
Yeah.
You know, like kind of what you're talking about with the puppet thing, where like normally we think of Nicholson as more like expressionistic.
Yeah, yeah.
But
like in The Shining or something.
But to me, he's very expressionist even in that movie. Just like the sweatiness you're talking about, and like
yes, in a different way.
And like how he uses
in
his
a more
body.
filmic way.
Yeah. But that's the thing. Like filmic acting is very different, also because it's like depends on what the director it is. Like how are they using their lenses? Are they actually letting you be in wide shot a lot of times, or is it a lot of close ups and you don't know stuff like that? You know. So that's why I can feel bad for the actor.
Yeah.
Because like then they don't know. Yeah. So then we get the. This is where the scene earlier. The train stops, and she like kind of gets embarrassed, and we kind of see like how big of a star he is. Where he basically he's basically still acting the same. You know, he's like just act like you're having a normal conversation. That they get more. They get more excited if you act nervous and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's funny because like there's like this kind of goes to that theme I was saying where she's like Tagore plays this role of moral beacon in the movie, and she's like a non-character, quote unquote. Because there's that quick moment where he's trying to distract her. He's like, okay, I'll ask you the questions, and he's like, first question, why aren't you married? And then do you want to get into films? And she just doesn't answer either one, and then she's like, okay, I'll ask the questions again. I kind of like the deflection. He's like, no, this is not my movie. You know, like we're going back to you. And then like we get the next flashback where now it's his first day of shooting film, and now we meet this like kind of basically we're seeing like we're kind of this tension we've talked about is like how much control does an actor have, and we just said it depends on the movie.
Yeah.
We're kind of getting this now with this actor where he's like obviously this actor has a lot of control over this set because and the quote he gives is actually a good reason what a lot of actors would give, where he says, quote, remember that only the actor is indispensable. Without him, the film doesn't happen. No assistant can step in for him. And he's making a good point where, like, especially if you're talking about the funding of a film, where it's like usually a film is getting funded because of the actors, you know. And so if you take the actor out, most investors are going to be like, okay, why am I funding this movie then? But they would care less so about the director a lot of the times. We're like, oh, we're replacing the director. Like, okay, I mean, if we've got the actors, people are still going to come watch it, which is sad, obviously. But okay, when's the last time you watched a movie because of an actor? If you can think of one. I mean, I have for sure, but it's just like...
Yeah, it's
Mission Impossible.
It doesn't happen. That was so long ago we watched.
Plus, that's the franchise more than... Even though he is the franchise.
It's Tom Cruise.
John Woo?
Well, I mean, that's director, though.
But I mean, he's part of the franchise.
Okay, but if
it's not only Tom Cruise.
So if the actor is also the director...
Also, McQuarrie's good enough director where I'll give him credit. It's not just Tom Cruise.
Okay.
Also, just the one bathroom scene in Fallout alone.
I mean, true.
With Cavill.
True.
And then, like, pocket appears out of it.
There probably is someone. I just can't think of them right now. Venom? Tom Hardy?
Yes, that type of... my classic example in my head, I was thinking of is Nicolas Cage. Like, he's an actor
okay.
he basically, he has his own kind of style where you have to mesh with that as a director.
What was that movie we watched?
Mandy?
No, Mandy. I love Mandy. The other one. That came out, like, last year. It's a movie people like. I don't like it that much.
Sci-fi
like
one?
The Dream one or some shit.
I don't remember.
Dream Scenario?
Yeah, Dream Scenario. Because we watched that, and I probably would watch that.
The last one, I think I found the last one I watched because of an actor. It was Love Me Tonight. It's like a 1932 Hollywood film because it had Maurice Chevalier in it. The guy who plays the Smiling Lieutenant.
If we're doing,
and also people compared the film to Lubitsch too. I guess that also maybe is why.
I mean, if we're doing that, then Buster Keaton, obviously.
Okay,
because I watched his MGM movies. There's no.
But he didn't direct. Like, if he's also director, doesn't count.
Yeah, no,
he's not directing his MGM movies.
Oh,
those are his bad
MGM.
ones.
okay, that I'll count. I'll give you that one. Yeah.
Like kind of.
No, it counts because I'm saying like when you watch a movie, you're like, oh, this movie is still bad, but the actor's good enough to where it's even worth watching. Just his presence alone or her presence alone.
Although for Love Me Tonight, I don't want to like discredit because I don't know the director very well, but I think people like him a little bit, like someone. Actually, yeah, people do like him. Actually, Ruben.
But it's hard because actors can't really elevate. Even a lot of the movies, even a lot of the actors that I love, like Nicolas Cage, he doesn't elevate the movies that he's in most of the time.
But that's the kind of question I'm asking: is there an actor where like just their presence alone, like I don't even care if the movie's bad, just their presence alone, and the only memories I'm gonna have of this movie anyway is their presence watching it. So like, I like it. That's why a lot of people like movies. Like that's the whole selling of it. It's like.
That's fair.
They're not going to remember the movie anyway. They're going to remember watching The Star. That's how the star system works, Especially it's like, oh, this star has a certain persona, and that's why they only do these genres, So, oh, this star in this genre, it's going to work. Like, I'm going to like the movie. I'm not going to have that many complaints. It's hard to miss or something. But that's obviously a very different type of movie than, like, mostly the movies we've done. That's why I think what you're saying is interesting is like a director, also an actor.
Oh, yeah.
They're having to think about both of those roles in themselves. It's like, how do they want to portray themselves? Which is funny because like I love seeing Chaplin's like pictures when he's not on camera, like his behind the scenes where he like looks way different, especially his younger pictures. Where he's like a very good looking guy.
He is.
But you just don't think of him when you just think of the Tramp,
Yeah, that's what you
what I mean? Like especially his like shorts where he like looks the most trampish and stuff. It's like. Where he was obviously the youngest and stuff. You don't think of like how we think, not how we perceive people like this is what I'm talking about. But I don't know. To get back to the movie, there's basically two flashbacks where now he's like, there's that actor that's like basically mean to him. What we're talking about, where he's kind of the controlling the set. He understands how important his role is. He's very demanding. He's a traditional kind of, I guess the old style of acting. It has. The naturalistic style of acting hasn't come yet. That's kind of what Ray's referencing. And Uttam Kumar is kind of the new age actor who's more naturalistic. And so it's like they had this like flashback where he's like, actually Bengali men during this time, they would have talked very politely to their fathers. He's like, well, it doesn't make any sense if I'm yelling and you're just like the styles don't match. So you have to match my style. Yeah. And they're kind of talking about basically. And he's right, you have to have a similar style for your movie. You can't just be like, oh, one's naturalistic and the other one's kind of more expressionistic. You gotta have a match. And he's like, I'm the star, so I'm gonna choose. But
tell that to Nosferatu. I'm just saying.
Well, what are you thinking of in Nosferatu? I don't.
They're just people that think they're in vastly different movies in that movie. So,
yeah.
Like Willem Dafoe is in a way different movie
I
than
mean, it
everyone
can work.
else.
That can work when it's like, especially with like one character, like, or if they don't even know or something.
Yeah,
Robert
there's a
Eggers
couple
hated gender
characters.
lesbian?
There's a couple characters in that movie that think they're in a way goofier movie than they are. A movie I would much rather see.
Yes,
obviously,
yes.
but
That's what I was going to say. It should have been a goofy movie, but it's never. Yeah, it should have been. But I don't even want to watch it.
I still haven't
There's
watched
some
it.
nice shots in it.
You haven't watched it yet?
Well, I may have. I probably would have watched it already, but like you guys like Eggers and you guys didn't like it at all, so I'm like, oh
Yeah.
boy.
But then there's basically like, so we see the actor be mean to him, but then we get some more flashbacks of now he's the film star. This old actor's coming to see him now to see if he can do anything. Kind of reminds me of the guy in the big city, the grandpa character who's like going around to his like, students.
Yeah.
But this is where I'm like, this guy has to be so dumb because he basically tells these flashbacks, and then she's like telling him like, oh, maybe you did that because like he tells the story of how like he was mean to, like, he didn't give him a role even after this guy came back to him, and he's like, you had him forget how he acted on the first day, right? How he treated you on that first day, even though he literally told these flashbacks back to back. Like, you think he's making that connection himself, and he's like, oh no, I didn't realize that. That's like, that's what I'm saying. It's like these flashbacks are too, they're too literal.
Okay.
Back to back, where it's like, you're literally, and especially since he's the one telling them, like,
Yeah.
you would think he's the one making the connection. It's like, how are you not making these connections?
This is, but see, maybe this is like what's the Boonwell movie? The screen? No. What's
Phantom
the
of
one?
Liberty?
Yeah, no. Wait, is that the one?
The
The one with
obscure
him on the
ob-
tree? On the tree? Yeah, the obscure
object of
object.
desire.
Where he's like telling everything and he doesn't learn anything at the end.
Oh yeah.
Honestly, okay. That's why I'm like, this guy seems kind of dumb like that.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
Ray, I wish he would emphasize that part more. Ray's like still too humanistic at the end of the day to kind of like make a empty character like that. But I don't know. Honestly, Days and Nights
I
has.
love that obscure object of desire.
It's so good.
I love that movie so much.
Damn. Gonna watch that again.
Sheesh.
Honestly.
No, they have this conversation too about basically like he's kind of realizing like that he has he asked the question to her like, should I even change this much, or is it worth it on the end? And I don't know if she's serious, but she's like, at least you're doing worthwhile work, right? You couldn't have done that before, and I'm sure the work gives you pleasure. And it's funny because like we've seen like she doesn't even like these movies and stuff, so I don't know if she's actually being serious or she's trying to make it feel good and stuff.
Yeah.
But then he goes to sleep again. That's when we get the dream of this woman who's like trying to seduce him. Basically, kind of like as much as possible, trying to show like the downsides of this kind of film industry he doesn't like. How film actors, are willing to use their power. How women try to get roles in films, that kind of thing. Then there's the scene of, this is where I'm like, this is my favorite stuff in the movie, is like the two execs, they're with the wife, and the older exec's like kind of drunk now, and basically every comment, like, it's kind of funny, like they'll be having a conversation and they'll just mention his wife and stuff, like he says like he mentioned one time randomly, he says you have a charming wife, and then they're playing chess and the young husband wins, he says checkmate, and the older guy's like, your mate is great, like
Your
right
mate
after
is
that. And just like, yeah, kind of just like what this guy's willing to put up with just to get this kind of contract. It's kind of funny, Then we get the dream scene of, because we just got the flashback of kind of implying that he slept with this woman,
Yeah.
I guess she said she wasn't married, but this other dream sequence kind of implies that she might have been married, because, after this long kind of that's what I'm saying, I really like the way it's shot in this forest with these kind of show lights on them. There's like that billboard they walk across, and it's like this door and stuff. It's kind of like I guess you could say it's a Fellini-esque kind of scene.
No, honestly, I was gonna say like the lights
This-
and the
yeah.
kind of like the is
Even
this deep focus? I'm not. I don't want to. Is this deep focus like cinematography? Is that how it's technically shot? Is that the right word to describe it? Or it's like the way how white some of like the bright spots are.
Yeah, the high contrast. With the
Yeah,
black.
the high contrast
Okay,
and the lay of the lights.
And I was just thinking, even like after they run through the forest, this kind of like party setting they're in too. It feels very Fellini-esque,
honestly.
Well,
I mean, yeah, and it's like it's
especially
just
sleeping on the other
he's
guy's
such a
wife.
Fellini protagonist too. I feel like, did we even typically say that? Like, really suave, like smoke cigarettes, like clean.
We definitely said that at the beginning. Whenever
like he's
we were
definitely like
talking
a
about his
Marcello
introduction.
Mastroianni type.
That's
like,
what I
and
saw,
honestly
like,
kind of
he-
maybe like
Actually, it's funny because Andrew Robinson. Let me read Andrew Robinson because he actually kind of says one of the weaknesses of this film is he doesn't think Kumar does like a good job at the start in the movie. Let me read the quote where he says, "At root, Uttam Kumar does not project the real star quality that would make him so admired and disliked. He may well be a modern Krishna, but where is his flute? He lacks elan and seems insufficiently masculine for a matinee idol. One looks in vain for a bit more Burton and a little less Bogart." I don't know if Bogart.
A little less Bogart.
is he dissing Bogart?
I guess so. And yeah, Burton. Which actor is that?
Richard Burton.
Maybe.
Is that an actor?
I don't know who Burton is. But basically, I read the quote because he's like, I wasn't even sure if I agreed with him 100%, but I forgot I had that. It reminded me when you said that. But then we get some more scenes of he wakes up. I think he like walks out of the train car. We get because he walks out of the train car. I think the wife of the this is where the younger wife he asks the star if he can be if she can act in movies. It's kind of funny. He's like, I think Ray is kind of juxtaposing. Like he immediately has this dream, this kind of nightmare about sleeping with this woman that wanted to be in the movies. He wakes up, leaves the train car, immediately this other young wife, this wife of another guy is like, I want to be in movies.
Yeah.
He's like, literally can't get away from it. And then
He's like, "Are you married?"
yeah. And then he kind of just she's like, "Oh, ask your husband, and then if he's okay with it, come let me know." Kind of just tells her off. And then immediately after that, she asks her husband if she can act in movies.
It's a great shot too.
Yeah.
It's the husband's in the reflection.
Yes.
She's also.
No,
just
actually, I put that in my notes, like the description of it too, because we talked about the Ray's reflection shot in the big city last week. How he used that one of. And this one to me might be even a little better. It's just like so simple. That's why I'm like, he does such a good job of making simple shots, but then like they still feel so complex. Just like it's just like in a train car, you know, they're having this conversation, but it still feels like, you know, like he put a lot of like it's almost like a painting kind of framing, you know, in terms of like he's like watching over. There's like the reflection of
he's like standing over.
Yeah,
her,
basically, yeah. Because we see like her, like his reflection on the left, then her
reflection
in the middle,
her reflection in the middle, and then her on like the right, I think.
Yeah. Well, so there's. Let me describe the room let me describe the whole room because first there's actually a little window, a mirror, for like where like people like you could brush your teeth, I guess like a sink mirror, and then right next to it is the window. So that's where you get the two types of reflections. You can get a reflection from the mirror on the far left, then the window also has a reflection. And then there's like her body on the right, so it's like little. You can get in just like this tiny shot. You get like 3 different like bodies, which is crazy. And then just like I think he's also like this is what I'm saying. He's really trying to compare the two of like what he's trying to do to what the kind of how the Hollywood system works in general. Like what he's doing is not much different. But this is where like I said, he's kind of stumbling out of the train. He tells the kind of the worker of the train to go get Sharmila Tagore, and this is why it confuses me. It's like, was he still going to go commit suicide? Like, why does he go get her? Why does he want to go get her right after? And then he's like, because he goes and gets her. That's when and then he steps out of the train car. It's like, is he really about to go commit suicide? Like,
I don't think he is. I think whenever he's looking at the train tracks, that's whenever the thought comes to him, honestly.
Okay, like, so he's just looking out there for, okay. It's like a spur of the moment.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
I think that's whenever the thought comes into his mind, at least. But...
No, okay. That's fair enough. No, because then she does arrive, and then he comes back in. And basically, he's like, wants someone to tell, like, how guilty he is about this kind of...
Sleeping with someone's wife.
Sleeping with a married woman, basically. And she's like, I really don't want to hear it. Like, she could tell.
He's like, but I need to tell it.
Yep. And he says, it kind of ends with I love these shots of her, too. This is where, like, the kind of moral beacon kind of really makes sense, because these shots of, like... I don't know if they're necessarily judgmental, but, like, they're judgmental in the way, like, a mirror is judgmental. Like... You see, if you don't like yourself and you see yourself in a mirror, it's judgmental, and like the shot of her, like the way she's looking at him, kind of reminds me of that, you know. And then he asks her basically like now that he's kind of been exposed, you know, this, like we've talked about the theme about these movies, and he asks, "Have you seen enough of your godlike hero now?" And it's kind of how the scene ends. That's why it's like I don't know why he kept this worldwide will worker scene in. Because he probably could have just go back to the ending, but I don't know. This guy is funny the way
it's funny. It's very funny. I just don't know why this guy's in here, but it's funny.
I think it's just to point out this guy because the way he gets interested immediately after he says, "Have you drawn up a budget?"
Well, it's just funny that this guy hasn't said fucking anything this entire movie, and then it's like morning of the last day. Basically, he's like all chipper and just like, "Oh, good morning."
I think maybe what he's trying to do is like this whole movie. This guy has been trying to work on this old exec, trying to get his business. And at the very end of the train ride, he just gets his business with this guy who's been in his train car the whole time. Maybe that's the joke, because he's like, oh, that's what he's talking about the budget. He's like, oh, and he's like, oh, we'll meet later and stuff. And he's like, basically got a client now. And like, he spent the whole train ride like talking to a different guy, and like that one, it's like almost random.
Talking to a different guy that's pointing his wife.
And like using his wife too. And it's like he didn't have to do any of that.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what, but that's what I can think of.
And then what is this thing like? This is just a cult, right? Like
he's like the way he says prognosticate and prevent all catastrophes.
With willpower.
It's like where there's a will, there's a way.
Where there's a will, there's a way.
Where there's a will, there's a...
No, it's worldwide workers. Worldwide will workers.
No, but yeah.
It's the internet before the internet.
Yeah.
www.
Actually, I will mention their last conversation after he comes and talks to her the next day. Now he's like sober and stuff, and he's like apologizing, and he's like wondering if she's gonna basically publish.
He says you can.
Yeah,
he says you can do whatever you want.
And he's like, I like this quote that he says at the end. He's like, I feel like there's still something missing, a certain emptiness, because that's what she asked him at the beginning. And the reason I wanted to end it on that is because that's basically what Ray's gonna say what the Days and Nights in the Force is about too. In terms of basically how he saw the middle class, young middle class at the time in Bengal, he said like a certain kind of emptiness too. So you could say that's another kind of theme about these movies. It was like this kind of, I don't know, at least how Ray sees this kind of emptiness of the modern man at the time. Maybe represented the film star in this movie at least.
Yeah.
But
I still don't know why she tears up the paper.
No, I'm glad you asked that. Like,
it's interesting.
Maybe it's to show she's like morally, she's justified in being a moral beacon, you know, if that's how she is, because like,
I can see that.
You know, if she did turn it in, you'd be like, oh, she's kind of like she's just like using him, you know. So it kind of makes her more of like a heroic character, I guess. Or,
I don't know.
Maybe not heroic. I would say more of like a moral character.
Yeah.
And he's just not. You know.
I don't know, because I could also read like I said like earlier. I think her tearing it up is like it could be her saying that like the Indian people basically need this hero essentially. Like we shouldn't expose the, I guess, real person underneath the image that everyone sees as the real person. But also like with him saying like you can publish it, like he might be wanting everyone to know like this truth basically of him. Mm. And her tearing it up, I don't know, maybe that's her saying like you chose this life, see it through to the end. I don't know.
Interesting.
I don't know, because like the shot of him, like I love the shot of him like as the movie ends with just like everyone around him again. No, like it's a great shot of her just like walking by, and then you just get like him there. But
no, it's a good way of him like entering his world.
Yeah, because I don't think he's happy still. Like I definitely don't think he's happy, but I think he would have been happier if she actually did publish whatever story that she was going to write.
Interesting. But do you think he would have been happier because that story, in a way, would have destroyed this myth?
Yeah, exactly.
So, but does he want the myth destroyed, really?
Yeah, I don't know. See, I don't know.
And like you said, does she want the image destroyed?
I don't think she does, because otherwise she probably would have.
I don't know. To me, at least, the way I watch it is like more of a personal, like she's like kind of a good person. Like, if she would publish it, maybe it would be rated as, like, she's using it for her own journalistic benefit. You know, she has a young magazine, like, using a huge star would have been great. A great story for her. But she would have compromised the same way this guy compromised, like, his kind of past.
That's true.
You know? Because, like, she's like, we don't do movies, you know, we don't do that kind of thing. So like she compromised, it would have been different than like what he basically the whole movie his side was about. You know, making all these compromises.
That's true.
I guess there's a lot of different readings, which is
Could be
interesting. That's what I love about Ray too. He leaves it open, and it kind of At least it ends on the train. Like there's no outside. That's why I'm like he could have started on the train too. Honestly,
He could have.
But yeah, that's the hero. We'll come back and do one of my favorites, Days and Nights in the Forest. And we're back to talk about Days and Nights in the Forest. Like I said at the end of the last one, this is one of my favorites. Interesting fact, this was... What year did this come out? Was
1970.
1970. This was the number 6 movie on the top 10 Cahiers du Cinema list of 1993.
A what?
Of 1993. This was on the top... this was the number 6 movie.
So like, what happened there? Like,
I'm thinking it might have had a release there or something. Maybe that's why. It's weird. I was like,
that's
first of all, because you had said like you had never heard anyone talk about this movie.
yeah.
Because it's funny you said that because like this is literally one of his most popular movies in Europe for a while, and it's like the one that's got a lot of writing about too. And I was like, so then I was like looking up stuff about it, and I was like, damn, wait, 1993. I was like kind of confused about that. But I guess I'm thinking that's why. The top 10 from that year, or at least on Cahiers' top 10. A Perfect World, Clint Eastwood, number 1.
Yep.
Well, I haven't seen that.
I haven't seen that one either.
French Love.
Valley of Abraham by Olivier, number 2. The Tree, the Mayor, and the Media Attack, number 3. Romer.
Yeah.
Smoking/No Smoking by Renee.
I've heard of it.
In the Land of the Deaf by Nicholas Filbert. Days and Nights in the Forest, Satyajit Ray. Mad Dog and Glory by John McNaughton. Innocent Blood by John Landis. Bad Lieutenant by Abel Ferreira. And then Hellas pour moi by Godard. Yeah. Most of those, I've seen Bad Lieutenant, but, and the Romer one.
Me too, yeah. Those
it looks like an interesting list, though.
It does.
So, but yeah, the number 6 movie, which is just a weird thing.
A 1970 movie, best in 1993.
Yeah. So let me turn to you guys. I do have some stuff I want to say before we get into the movie. But let me ask you guys, what are your thoughts on this movie overall? What comes to your head when having to reflect back on it?
No, I definitely really liked it. Definitely a lot to take in on first watch, but like, I just like all like the different little like character quirks and like dynamics throughout the film that he kind of like deconstructs, but like kind of in like a lore, like I kind of like how lighthearted it kind of is a lot of the time. Like it's not like it's very free flowing. I feel like in the typical Ray manner. But yeah, no, it's a really good film. Like the way that like you kind of like slowly kind of discover like how the women kind of like expose each of the man's like egos and insecurities is really cool to watch. The way he uses like the forest and stuff. No, yeah, I definitely need to rewatch it, but I really liked it on first watch.
What about you, Blake? Anything?
Yeah, I really liked it too. Echoing what Luke said, I need to rewatch it obviously because there is a lot going on in this movie. I think it was like halfway through, and I still didn't know exactly what was going on, which is fun because the movie really is just kind of like this laid back, like these guys almost just kind of just appear out of nowhere into this place, and I don't really know where they are still. Like I just know that they're from Calcutta, so they're obviously on a vacation of sorts. And that's maybe one of the only ways that these women could like maybe get them to see like their basically the problems with their ego, because they're kind of relaxed in the situation. Like all four of these guys are like really relaxed. I feel like this whole movie, like it's a very relaxing vacation type feel for them until like, but these women obviously come into their lives and are kind of like revealing certain things that they don't really want to see about themselves. And even like some of them know these things about themselves, but they just don't want to like see it. But I don't know. There's a lot going on, like I already said, but very worthwhile watch. Definitely needs a restoration. I think I said that earlier on this podcast too, because it would be very, very gorgeous if it had a restoration. It already is. It already is pretty gorgeous, but I don't know. We've already gotten so many of Ray's movies restored. Like, why can't we just do the rest of these? Like, like some of it's not. I think like we're gonna do the Adversary. I think also, and that one also
yeah,
need restoration. So.
That's what. It's just a bigger issue of like how cinema gets the impression of certain directors in our head get imprinted not because of all of their filmography, but which ones get restored, which ones get re-released and distributed, etc. Yeah, that's what sucks. Like, yeah. To me, he should be more known for movies like this and like The Chess Players and stuff. He even has a quote. I won't read the whole thing, but basically has this whole quote of like how this was one of his more experimental movies, because normally in India, just with the type of audience he had in India, he talks about like, he says, quote, "These kinds of risks, especially in relation to their audiences, haven't been taken by Bergman or Fellini." And he's basically saying like, in those audiences, they have this kind of art house cinema there already, like especially the international art market, which is like, in a way, Ray was half kind of making movies for that too, as well as trying to make movies for people in Bengal. And he's saying like, basically they're allowed to take more risks openly, like this idea of a Fellini movie and a Bergman movie, like those kind of like what we have in our heads of those movies, they're allowed to do certain stylistic things where like in India, if you tried those things, it would basically just like you would not be able to make money from them, you know.
Yeah.
So he's like trying to get away with stuff, you can tell. And this one is way more. This is why I like it more. Like he's just kind of going more experimental. Like this movie has like no plot, like, and it's not even trying to really.
Yeah.
Like where other ones you could say it's trying to a little bit, or like even The Hero kind of feels like, I was saying like it feels like on the nose a little bit. Like it feels a little more direct just in those aspects of like it's trying to teach a moral message and stuff. This one, like, I don't know, just it has like, it's a very kind of just. I love how almost nothing it is. Almost that's what I love about it. Like I love how little music it is. Like it's like a lot of just walking. Like when they're even walking into the bar and stuff. I realize how quiet the movie is at parts. I just love. But it is a very beautiful movie too. But I do have a lot of some stuff I wanted to say. Like so first, Andrew Robinson, the guy who wrote the book The Inner Eye, the biography on Ray. I like this quote where he says, quote, "Days and Night has a structure and mood that can be described as musical, and once more, Mozart springs to mind. With its unobtrusive patterning of motifs, its wonderful range of voices, and most of all, its capacity to be serious by being humorous, the film defies total analysis." And he says, quote, "The theme of Days and Night might be said to be the way in which urban living cuts us off from each other and from our true environment and blunts our moral sense, though it is never stated as openly as this." And then Debra Priya Sanyal, she kind of mentions the same kind of thing of like, basically the forest kind of allows these men to like live in a way that they're not allowed to live in the city. You know, they kind of reference it at parts, but this idea of like in the city they're very kind of controlled. You know, they're like their life's already been decided, and like they're coming on vacation, almost like forcing this like power almost. You know.
Well, that's why I said they're very relaxed this whole movie.
Yeah, but like no, they are very relaxed, but in terms of like the power of like how, especially how they're treating the gatekeeper and stuff, and like how they see themselves, and, relation to the forest tribe and stuff like that. Like you can tell like they enjoy this kind of almost
Superiority.
yes, that's the word I'm looking for. You know, because they're trying to run away from something. You know, it feels like I forgot which. Let me. Was there any Romer that comes to mind? Because anytime I think of a vacation movie, like Romer's like the standard for me, and this one is like definitely kind of Romer-esque in that way of basically like why is someone trying to go on vacation in the first place? And actually, before I read this, because do you know who Raymond Ballor is? He was like a French critic for Cahiers. You might have read some stuff by him, but he kind of wrote, I guess, like in the 80s and 90s. And this was in letters, and he had a set of letters that he wrote with some other, I guess a critic named Marie Redonette. But anyway, someone had translated these in English, and I remember reading these a few years ago, and I was glad I was able to find them. And basically in these letters, he kind of writes about let me first read, like, because the directors he mentions are great, and you can see kind of all three of these directors, even though one of them is unfortunate. Let me read them. He's like, quote, I remember latching on to some references to articulate my surprise, to rationalize my amazement. This Satyajit Ray, who couldn't apparently be more different, made me think of, at least in a setup, of Romer. This was suggested to me by a friend of mine who loved the film and urged me to go see it right away. Of early Fellini. And he says, quote, in parentheses, Ivan Filoni, for example. And he says, or even of Hawks. And he says, in parentheses, the fate of groups, the games of men and women, the transition from light to serious, the logic of plot reversals, the miraculous balance of classical cinema, modern though it is. And then he says, in short, it's still about the rules of the game and he says, the rules of the game, literally talking about Renoir, between ethics and aesthetics. And then he's like, now that I'm writing to you, I recall that Ray had worked with Renoir in the River. Like, I guess he didn't even know that much about the connection.
So it's Hawks the unfortunate one, though?
Huh, what?
You say Hawks the unfortunate one?
Yeah.
I thought you were saying like Polanski or something. I mean, I can definitely see the group dynamics with Hawks.
No, but I like those directors he mentions too, because you can kind of see a little bit of all those in them.
This can further my Hawks agenda. I like this.
Especially like the games of men and women, and you had mentioned the transition from light to serious too.
And the games of men and women also. Stay tuned for the Rivette series.
Oh, okay.
Because that's kind of what he took from Hawks in a way too.
Yeah. And then honestly, like I'm now thinking about the Rivette Code, like just how a film is about people just walking and talking.
Yeah.
That's a lot of this movie too.
Yeah.
But it's kind of just more than that too. Yeah, I'll read another quote from him later on where he talks about what they loved about this scene, and their letters are back and forth about this movie. But what they loved about this movie is, and I'd really not even I never emphasized it into my head until they kind of talked about it. Even though I realize now how much important the scene is of when the wife whose husband had died, when she kind of tries to seduce the guy at the end, and he kind of just basically gets scared and runs off. Yeah. Like how important that scene is basically to the movie. They basically kind of love that scene. But some other people that love this movie, Pauline Kael, who said, quote, Satyajit Ray's films can rise to a more complex feeling of happiness in me than the work of any other director. No artist has done more than Ray to make us reevaluate the commonplace. And then, I guess this she wrote for The New Yorker, Penelope Houston. She said, lucid, ironic, and superlatively graceful. On the surface, we're watching the casual, unstressed flow of life. Actually, there isn't an incident or a character whose role isn't functional. I kind of love that too, because it's like you said, it's a very relaxing movie. It's like very, it's very stress-free in a way, but then at the same time, it's revealing so much about all of them at the same time. Kind of just what just by how Ray deciding to show things, which is kind of like a perfect movie to me, where you can do both. It's almost like L'Argent to me. The subject matter is very different, but like L'Argent has that very similar quality where I was talking about that movie, where it's like the flow of the movie and the subject matter is almost like two very different things, Yeah.
That's interesting.
But I don't know. Like obviously Ray's style is also very different than.
Did Ray like Bresson?
I don't know. I've never seen him talk about him specifically.
They were at the same time, so it'd be interesting.
No, the way Ray talks about directors too, I like. But I have to find that. That's interesting. Yeah, I think we can go ahead and get into it because there's some scenes I wanted to talk about specifically, but let's see. Actually, before we get into it, the movies. I forgot. I wanted to read this. Were Ray's notes, and I think this will be really helpful to how we just see these characters in the movie itself. These were Ray's notes that he had written for like how he described each of the 4 characters.
Yeah.
So he says Asim, which is Soumitra Chatterjee's character, I think. He says the wealthiest of the 4 had once had a conscience about his affluence and even done some politics, but is now part of the establishment with a safe job. Has a way with girls, is confident about them, and has had some conquest to his credit, but he remains a bachelor. Is a bit of an intellectual with leanings towards poetry, likes to dress well and is conscious of it. Has no time for anything except light magazines now, smokes good cigarettes. For him, the reasons of the journey are to try out his new car, to be irresponsible in the company of his friends. And then he says Sanjoy, which is the guy with the glasses. He says has the same political leanings as Asim, retains more of his values, but is essentially timid and therefore prone to compromise. Is shy with girls, has a scholarly turn of mind, is knowledgeable about many things, aspires to an easy life, and has an eye for pretty girls but is not adventurous about sex. Probably will eventually have an arranged marriage. His reasons for the journey. He is a true lover of places. He needs a relaxation from the cares of his work. Hari, who's the sports guy, he says, essentially a sportsman, not intellectual, has an easy boyish charm, which some girls might find irresistible. With the right girl of his class, he might even make a good and lasting match, because he's essentially good. He has a feeling of inferiority, which hides beneath the glum exterior. Reason for the journey, the girl he wants to forget about. And then Sekar, which is in my notes I have him as the funny guy.
The gambler.
The gambler. I don't know how to describe him, but what Ray says is a hedonist, happy-go-lucky, witty, more frustrated, although he will easily strike a pose of frustration. A dabbler in many things, apparently adventurous, but really a bit conservative. This is my favorite line. With 6 more inches to his height, he could easily be a ladies' man. As it is, he can make quick friendships with them, advise them on their affairs, and hold their hands, which he does frequently, on the pretext of a handshake. He is apparently content with the role he plays, and we needn't concern with ourselves with what goes on beneath the surface. Reasons for the journey. His friends want him there for tonic effects of his company. Tonic effects of his company.
That's the most brutal way to say someone always gets friends, though. Basically,
honestly, I mean, like,
it's just like,
but it's kind of a compliment too, because it's like it's only because of his height. Like, if he had the height, he would have been a ladies, but like he basically is ladies' man now. It just like he interacts with them differently. No,
He just get friends.
I don't know if that's a compliment. I'm not too sure.
with 6 more inches, is how you can be a ladies' man. As it is, he can make quick friends with them.
6 more,
Advise them on
6
their
more inches
affairs.
where? Anyway.
Oh, damn. Alright. This is also, I think, important distinction from this movie, and even from the hero and a lot of Ray's past, is like, I do think it's something he's trying to say, is like, if you remember, do you guys remember how the beginning of this movie starts?
Them like driving.
Yes. But there's also something significant. I've basically said this from every other Ray movie we've done, and this one is, basically almost all of them start with music. Like, usually the theme of the movie. But this one has no music.
Yeah.
I think, like, right off the bat, it's almost like saying something like, this is, like, basically a less sentimental movie in general, you know? It's got a more, like, kind of a... I know I've been saying this, like, Ray has a detachment in all of his movies, but he still feels a little sentimental, a little close to his characters, I guess I would say. This one feels a little apart from them, you know? Even just the way, like, the music is used after it comes in later. Because the first time... We get the scene of, like, them talking in the car and stuff. There's like this shot of them. There's this great shot of they're filling gas, and like there's like a face behind the car.
Yeah,
he does that a few times, which I love. But like we get a scene of them fighting in the car with the. I'm gonna call them by their character types, because I don't have their names. Because like I'm gonna call him funny guy. You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Sports guy. Glasses guy.
This guy.
Yeah, I obviously will know.
And then someone Chatterjee, he's the main kind
Yeah.
of...
He's the only one that gets
yeah. I don't know the other actors. And to me, they are supposed to be types, too, in a way. But, yeah, there's, like, no music. And then they basically get this opening scene of them in the car going to forest, and then actually the music starts as after it cuts. We get that opening theme, then the music comes with the opening credits, and like the music's kind of like darker too. It's like these drums. I don't know. Like I said, it's less sentimental than some of his other movies. But then we kind of they're still in the car after the credits, and there's like that quick flashback of we learn Hardy's reason for coming. We kind of learn just like through this is the only flashback I get, or there's some, but not very many, which I like. They're kind of quick too. Like this one's quick if we learn what his reasoning is. His girlfriend broke up with him because like she wrote him this like long ass letter, and he only like wrote her like something like super short, and like kind of like apparently like, I think this is like to me this is like kind of undergirding especially his role, but like almost all the characters is like he doesn't like women smarter than him, like at least even exposing that in him.
Yeah,
you know, he's like very insecure about that, and like he's obviously thinking about this incident too, where it's like she's like this response was like obviously not good, you know, she basically breaks up with him because of that, and like that's why he's on the trip. But then we some of the this is what I was saying, like on the rewatch, some of these more subtler aspects of the movie kind of like become more obvious to me. Of initially you're kind of watching just the main characters and maybe like eventually how they're gonna meet the women, but like some of the best parts of the movie is their interactions with the gatekeeper. To me, it's like I was saying, like how they kind of view their power in this kind of setting is because they're kind of all escaping the city life that they don't really like in all their own ways. But then when they arrive here, like they kind of like in a way, at least to me, they kind of like using their money now, like how powerful it is. Because like the gatekeeper's like telling them like, oh, it's closed. Also, the gatekeeper implies like his wife is sick, and like they just completely ignore everything about that, which is just another like little subtle part of the movie where they basically ignore everything that's going on with this gatekeeper's life, like why he can't work or but they just don't care. But they pay this guy off eventually with the money, and like Ray kind of focuses on it too, because like there's like a close up of the money as they're handing it off, and you even hear him say in English, "Thank God for corruption," like as he's saying it, which is funny. But yeah, then we kind of we get a shot of how they're taking baths in this they call it a bungalow in the translation, I guess. This like huge well with this like a tree branch, I guess, that's been used to like go down into the well. It's kind of cool, honestly. But we get the first shot of them walking through the forest, which may be my favorite shot in the movie, of this like silhouette as they're going to get drunk for the first night, and it's like this low angle shot from behind them as the sun is setting, but it's like really deep blacks basically.
Yeah.
Really, it's a very silhouetted shot. I just love it. And we actually do get music too. And then they arrive at the bar. This is where like the movie's very like the first time I watched it, I remember thinking it was kind of messy, like especially for Ray. But I give it like to its credit in a way where it's like normally there would be more music in between the transitions and stuff, and like the cuts would be more fluid between like them going to the bar and them actually talking at the bar. But like this one, it's like it feels like more like just relaxing, like they're just walking, you know. It's I don't know, it's I kind of like it. Just maybe it's because it feels so different from a lot of the Ray movies that we've watched already. It's just kind of a contrast in a way. Especially since I think he is trying to, in a way, say like I can make this kind of movie that's more kind of I don't know how to describe it, open.
Would you say art housey?
I hate that word because you can say even Ray's older movies are that way a little bit, but less less
maybe more worldly.
More worldly, like less
focused
rigid
on his demographic. Maybe.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, stuff like that. Yeah. But even just like even less Renoirian, I guess is another way to put it. You know. But we get this sort of we do get another flashback, but I love how quick it is where we get so much of Chatterjee. His flashback of how he doesn't want to. What the world he's escaping from is all these like execs and these like like room or something, and they're talking to his he's talking to the glasses friend, and they're talking about how like the other one can't leave his job because of all those family pressures, and like basically this kind of idea of like what I've been saying is why they're here in the first place, is this kind of city life that they're trying to escape anyway. And to me, that's why I think the gatekeeper stuff comes in important, is like how they viewed their power in those kind of settings. You know, it's like they're kind of almost enjoying it in a way. It's like at least this place they get to feel like so powerful, you know, before they go back. But then there's also like the tribal woman that they see as they're drinking too, and that's kind of I think the other example. It's like, oh, see, they get to feel more superior, I guess, than especially for Hari. He gets to feel more. He wants to feel more superior anyway than her. And like we kind of get the opening shots of like how he's gonna basically fall for this one girl. But then as the next morning, I forget, it's probably like 30 minutes in, we see the maybe not 30, maybe 20, where we see the women for the first time.
It might be 30.
The funny guy, as he's like waking up after the day after drinking, he like looks off in the distance, and he sees. No, actually, no. Never mind. The woman he sees this time are the tribal women walking.
Yeah,
and that's when they come and help him. He like pays them to come help.
Yeah, pays them to come and clean up or whatever.
This huge fan is crazy. That apparently someone would just have to, you know, pull the string back and forth while people sat on the other side of the room and got this like huge fan for them. But then like the gatekeeper comes and like doesn't trust him and he like kicks them out and stuff.
I mean, they do steal. Don't they steal something?
No, they actually don't. Which is
it not them? Okay.
No, because remember, this is the whole thing, and the way Ray uses this wallet is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Because like, so first, it's kind of the way he shoots her cleaning. You think, oh, she might have. That's where she steals the wallet.
Yeah.
And so when they leave, he immediately runs out. Right after they leave, he runs out. But because he's already kind of attracted to one of the girls, he doesn't want to accuse them. So he's like, he immediately runs out. And he's like, oh, it was that
the other boy or something. It's like a boy or something.
No, he's not. I guess
it's like a teenager. I don't know.
Yeah,
but one of the workers.
Yeah, one of the workers, I guess. He's like, no, it must have been him. He's like, I never even came inside. It couldn't have been me. And he still goes and punches him basically.
Yeah,
and that's the guy when he's like, I'm done. Just pay me and leave. We're gonna see this guy come back later, but almost to show to me at least, this kind of makes. To show, like, even in this place, they're not that powerful. You know, this guy still gets he gets robbed at the end anyway. Yeah. But like, he still doesn't want to accuse that girl. And then when do we find the wallet? It was he had just left it. You know.
That's right. At the badminton court or whatever. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. So, but that's actually where we see the women for the first time. Is they're playing badminton. Actually, the funny guy does see them walking, because I love how he describes them. He's like, "Fantastic news! Sari in slacks," or something like that. Because one of them's wearing a sari, and then one of them's wearing pants. So it's like, just the way he says it, just so funny. No, but yeah, then they go. I think they go to see them, and like as they're like they're kind of just weirdly standing outside the house, watching them. And when the father comes and he's like, "Oh, I saw you guys sitting out there," and he's like, "We were just admiring your cottage. We were just admiring your cottage from out here." Like, clearly, you know, that's not why. But then the father, you know, he's a nice guy. He invites him inside, and they kind of have this conversation. They're like all talking and stuff. I love this is where I'm like saying like this is where you kind of have to watch for Ray's framing. In the movie, like I love because they're all sitting on this like kind of porch outside the house, and there's like this great shot of like how he frames both of the women, and he does this where like he kind of just like naturally like split a screen using like a window frame or a door frame, and he does it in this one too, and it's just like so cynical, but they also like so beautiful if you just like pay attention. And this is where we're kind of like seeing like, or at least we're getting a hint on like what kind of woman Tagore is in this one. Or because just like for some reason she like watches cricket and like the father never even knew that, and that's where so Mr. Chatterjee kind of realizes his chance to go be with her alone because he's asked to go see where her place of meditation.
Yeah, saw them go play badminton and then they're the only two left there.
I mean, it actually is. I think he's even doing like little things of like how the characters use the different ways to go be alone.
Yeah.
In subtle ways, you know. Like the ending is the same kind of way of how the two couples kind of split off in their own ways. It kind of happens in a different way too here. But I love this kind of conversation they have in her little like meditation area, and to me, this is like one of the best parts of the movie. It's like there's no music, the camera's kind of just like watching them talk to each other. This is where it kind of feels like Romarian too, and like I love like even more than the talking that they're doing, we're getting a lot about who she is just from like how he's like searching her room, which is like kind of one. Yeah. This is like one of my favorite things about the movie is like kind of how we find out about different people just like. Through like this example of the room, like he goes through her. First he goes through her books. Yeah. Like she has like a lot of scientific books and like I forgot what else she has.
It's like plays and stuff.
Yeah, some plays and stuff.
I like the one that said what is God in the age of scientific or in science. Or
one
something.
of them was
actually
one was Agatha Christie too. It was like
and one of the books I've read. It's called The History of Western Philosophy. I'm pretty sure she has that book by Bertrand Russell. It's like a huge book on the history of Western philosophy. I'm pretty sure that's in this movie. It might have been in The Adversary.
It might have been Charlotte.
So we have New American Drama.
Oh,
Agatha Christie, the something. Survival of God in the Scientific Age.
I want to know the records she has.
It might be the Adversary.
Yeah, I think it might be in the Adversary.
Okay. There was a Ray book I actually read because I saw it in this movie.
She has some like vinyls, I think, too.
She does. She has records, yeah.
The records, too, were interesting, too. I actually might use one of the songs. Because do you remember the last... She actually picks up kind of quick. I wish she would hang on longer. Mozart, she picks up really quickly.
Put a Rubber Soul.
The last one is called the
some
Indo
blues
Jazz
probably
Suite.
Shit, I'm assuming.
It's called like Indo Jazz Suite.
Or something like that.
It's basically an Indo Jazz album. And I listened to some of the songs. They're actually kind of good. But basically kind of showing like... she's kind of this...
She's cultured.
Yes, basically. I guess, yes, exactly. And especially... and I think he's trying to show, compared to the way she's dressed, and like, you wouldn't have guessed this about her. You know, she's dressed more like...
I would have thought that you would have guessed that more about her, because she's dressed more modern, I thought. Because she's the one in the slacks. She's got like the white slacks on...
I guess of the way, because even so much of Chatterjee, he's like, oh, the way you would dress, I wouldn't have guessed this. Because like he was saying modern, the more like you only care about aesthetics.
Yeah,
maybe not this kind of intellect thing. At least in his.
Yeah, because he thought of her as a girl that went to parties or some shit.
Yes, that's what he says exactly, and that's why she dressed like this. Like, first of all, there's a lot of kind of projection or just stereotyping of women. Like a woman can't dress like this and be smart or something. But yeah, like basically, yeah, he's kind of she like just from this one scene, he's already like in love, kind of.
Me too.
He even says this. This is another thing. The captions are probably really bad. This is another thing why it needs to be restored. It needs to be has a better subtitling and stuff. Like if you're watching, I should have said this at the beginning, but if you watch this movie, you should if you read a caption, you should be like, okay, how would someone try to say this actually?
Yes, exactly.
You shouldn't. That's why I was having to do a lot of people be like, the dialogue is terrible if you're just reading it literally.
That's why I was having to do
like touching you.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly the line I'm thinking right now. It's like it's not that bad. It can't.
Come on.
But it is fun. But if you're thinking about what's happening in the scene, it still makes sense because he's like the way because what happens is he says that, and the way she changes the conversation is funny. She changes the subject immediately, and then she also immediately walks out.
Yeah.
Basically, always let's get out of here. This guy. But they go back to then they go back, and that's when they leave, and they arrive right back to the park ranger now coming. You could say the gatekeeper's level 1, now level 2 showed up, telling them they have to leave, and they're like, okay, we can get around this guy. And it's funny too because Ray's also doing this. I think he's literally. He's not making fun of the guy for having a stutter, but he's showing basically how they're trying to use their power almost in a literal manner. Is every time he says a line, they'll try to interrupt him before he can finish. Yeah. Just so they can say their stuff. He's saying they're not listening to him. They're trying to say their own thing. But some of it's really funny. At one point where he's you have to vacate. There's no, and he starts to pause. And now the funny guy is like, "There's no difference, whether you stay or go or something." It's like, "No, that's not what I meant." And, there's like little stuff like that, basically interrupting every time he tries to say something. Someone to Chatterjee at one point he says like, "We will literally." He's like, "We will be staying." You know, he's not even like asking at one point. He's like, "We're definitely staying." And he's like, and at the point the guy's like, the head guy's coming in 2 to 3 days. You'll have to deal with him at that point. And he's like, "Okay, we'll do that."
And they're just like, it all depends on his mood, right?
yeah, exactly. They're like, "Oh, well, we'll just get around that too." See, they're very, like that's what I'm saying. They're very confident in this setting, in their power, what their money has. Like they wouldn't have this confidence back in the city. You know, they play very specific roles there and stuff. So you can tell they kind of, at least in my opinion, they enjoy this kind of power they have here with the money. But this is the time where the tribal... I actually was right the first time. This is when the tribal woman comes and the whole wallet scene happens.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I was right the first time. I don't know why I said that. This is where he accuses them of the wallet. Because like, they've already had the Batman scene at that point, so it would have made sense.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Hardy's already left his wallet there. Doesn't know it. But then he accuses that guy of stealing the wallet, and that guy leaves. Then the next scene is this kind of... You could say, like, this is where it's like... you could say this is almost literal, but in a good way, of the bat scene. Of, like, having you being exposed literally.
Yeah, literally.
You know, in front of someone. But to me, it's, like, really funny, and it like, works. Where, like... I love the way it's shot, too, because first they're just taking this bath, you know... just 3 dudes taking a bath outside together.
Shooting the shit,
nothing
you
weird
know?
about it.
Exactly.
As long as they're like 3 feet apart, you know.
Yes, yeah.
Which they are.
No, but like, you know, they're all taking turns with this water and stuff. And then you hear like a car horn once. That should have been their first warning, but no. I love how I think it's the glasses guy. He jumps.
Yeah, he
down
jumps
right
behind
away.
the well, hiding.
I love this shot too, because it's like
It's a great
you're like
shot.
at first you're like, oh, this guy got lucky, you know, he got to hide. But then you're like, it's actually kind of more embarrassing maybe in a way for him hiding like this.
Yeah.
Because like the way he's hiding too is so funny.
Yeah.
And the way the camera shot. That's why I love Ray's like simple framing. It's like one shot, you get all the information you need. It's like very kind of silent cinema is, you know, from behind you get everything in front of you, everything you need. There's no like multiple cuts, and then after that, and then like the way the camera does cut, it's basically almost like exact 180 to the other side from Tagore's angle. She's like sitting on the other side of the car basically, and she's like smiling in the background, and the camera's showing her perspective now. And then Chatterjee, he's just like basically shirtless in the background. And he's like really tiny, but you can see the soap on him and stuff too. He just looks funny.
He just looks so uncomfortable.
Yeah, he does. The way he's standing too, like they're not confident in themselves.
No,
you know?
no.
This is where it's like you're seeing it like really, you know, like they like acting confident, but like this is where you're kind of seeing it. And then this is where the funny guy is so funny because he's the one that they make him go get the wallet too, so he has to go walk, and he goes and grabs it. And I forget what he's like. The way he's saying in English, he's like, "Oh, that's most kind of you." Most kind of you. And he's just like, "Have a nice trip." And like, it's funny the way like you're supposed to think it's funny the way he's saying it, but then immediately after they leave, he's like, "Did you see how I spoke English? It was such good English." He's like really proud of it too, which makes it even funnier. I have in my notes though, like if this does happen to you, where do you put your hands in that situation? You know, like I felt a little bad for him because he's like, you know, it's a classic case of where do I put my hands?
Yeah.
You know, like let's say you're giving a speech and there's no podium in front of you. What are you doing with your hands?
Like, kind of like
Luke just did something you should not be doing.
Honestly, just cross your arms across your chest like this. I don't know.
you kind of like go back and forth, you know. You kind of do the other.
But he's not talking though.
If I'm talking.
No, but I'm saying like let's say the guy next to the guy who's giving the speech, like because he's like not talking. Like Chatterjee, he's just standing there. You know. So what are you doing with your hands at that point? Is it just arms crossed, or hips? Hips seems weird, but
hips is definitely weird.
Or do a little bit of this.
See, I'm trying to like that's the thing. I think Ray on purpose, like there's no pole to lean on. There's nothing like for them to lean on.
Yeah, put your hands in front of you, like cross your hands, or like maybe go behind a little bit. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's just standing with his arms to his side, I think.
I'm not gonna do this. I'm gonna look.
But like we said, he is standing awkwardly too.
It's funny.
But then I think this time specifically they're going back to bar. At least Chatterjee's going back to the bar to forget about what just happened. There's a funny. There's like a funny. This is where like I'm saying the movie's like fun too at the same time. But it's not just serious. Like you could say the Hawks almost reversal. I read in that quote earlier where like there's this twist of you think Harry's gonna get really mad about the wallet. He's getting like really mad at the funny guy for like losing his wallet.
Yeah.
No, actually Chatterjee's the one who's getting mad. And then all of a sudden it shifts to Hari. He's like laughing, and like they're like wondering why he's laughing. And then he just starts like imitating what the English he used earlier in the scene, where he's like, "How very kind of you." I'll never get that voice out of my head. He's one of my favorite Ray actors too, because he's gonna be in next week's The Middleman, and he's such a good character in that one. It's like this kind of like sleazy but also likable, like kind of corporate guy, I guess you could say. But no, that's why I just love this guy. But yeah, that's when the movie kind of shifts. Like, you think he's going to get mad, and then all of a sudden they're, like, happy again. They're, like, really drunk. They're walking outside. They're, like, doing this kind of tribal dance. They call it the tribal twist, I guess. But this is when this is another case where they probably, after the car came the first time, they should have been on their edge about if the car comes, maybe it could be them. But they completely don't even think about the second time this car comes. It's that night, I guess, and they're drunk. But they basically think it's just, like, some random people. Yeah. And so they start dancing in front of the car, and this is kind of supposed to be another example of them embarrassing themselves in front of the women. And also, they're kind of basically embarrassing themselves every time they're not with the women directly. I forgot which author I read that said that. It's like every time they're with the women, they seem like subtle. They seem kind of dignified, but then every time like they're not with the women, they're like basically like drunk or like kind of like
uncivilized.
Uncivilized.
True
exactly. Yes. And this is another example of like, because they had promised they would meet them for breakfast the day before, and now they just like get really drunk. They're hoping the women don't know that, so they don't know that like they've just seen them all outside and stuff, and then they end up being like really late for this breakfast too.
Overslept.
Yeah. And it's so funny because like I love this like how they withhold the information. It's a classic case of like the audience knowing something that the characters don't know, you know. And but I also love this scene too. This is where like the movie has like these little moments that just don't feel anything narrative related, where like they do show up late and you think it's going to be this tense scene of maybe they're late and stuff, and then we get like almost like 2 minutes of this father just singing this like old religious song, back turned to all of them because he doesn't know they're all there, and just like I don't know, it's like a really sweet moment. Just like all of a sudden it just happens, and then you get and that's when like they all talk about them being late and they're apologizing and stuff. And there's like a little like another kind of subtle moment of them like not revealing that they saw them the previous night, but kind of hinting at it to the audience, where the kid is like he said he saw some animals and that was like the most exciting thing he saw last night, and they're like what we saw was way worse. We saw drunk people dancing. And it's so funny because all of them immediately assume, they don't assume themselves. They're like, oh, tribal people, you know, they get so drunk late at night, it's terrible. Not like, it's like not knowing they're talking about themselves. Like, the funny guy is like, tribals are so scary, especially when they're drunk on country liquor. It's just like, kind of just revealing like how they see other people, and like basically, honestly, how like, a lot of middle class people will blame, you know, lower class people for things they do themselves, you know. But then we get this is where basically I say the level 3 guy comes finally, the big boss of the conservative.
The actual boss.
Even the way he's shot, he's like really low angle, but he's like shot really intimidatingly and stuff. He's like, and the first thing they say to him, he's like, "We hope you make some exceptions in some case." And it's fun. I think the reason why this is all here is like, at the end of the day, do you guys remember why they get saved?
The women.
Yeah, which I think is the whole point. It's like, they think, they're using their own power, at least in this setting, and they're gonna get saved. And it's like, no, the only reason they're allowed to say at the end is because like the women's power and like their connections, you know, has nothing to do with them. They kind of just get lucky.
The women lie for them.
They're basically about to get kicked out, and it's like, I didn't realize these were friends of yours, and it basically just ends there. It's like, that's why they're allowed to say. You know, it's like, it's just, you know, it's just very, just nothing more has to be said. And I did put in my notes, like, this is like, especially during these scenes, we're getting a lot of wide shots of like them talking to the conservator and like the kind of women after they do save them and like when they're walking. And it's like in my notes, like, damn, this looks so much better. It feels restored,
yes.
like, because he's using a lot more wide shots than he normally does because they're outside and stuff. And it's like they still look great, like the way he's framing the character and stuff, but it looks so much better. If it was like clear,
the contrasts are off. It's way too bright.
Yeah.
In certain, like the whites are way too bright and the
Yes.
blacks are way too black.
Yes. No, but I'm still like at least that's available on YouTube to watch.
Exactly. Exactly.
No, but I did. That's the reason why I said you should watch this. Yeah, like I told you guys, like the YouTube comments. At least I'm assuming these were Bengali people that were saying in the comments. So they're like, just don't even trust the captions on the YouTube one because it's so bad. That's all. I'm like hoping the ones I have, the one I had already downloaded, was better.
Yeah.
But it could be the same one. I don't know. Hopefully not that bad.
I watched the one on YouTube and it definitely was bad, but it was more bad in the way that you were describing earlier. Like you just have to imagine how an actual person would say it, like, and not just like whatever the translation that they have is. But because I don't know which one you had on YouTube, but there were some on YouTube that said that they had subs, but then you started watching and there weren't any subs at all whenever they started talking. So I think the subs are just like way behind. Yeah. So I'm not sure if that might have been the video you were on where they were commenting that because they could have just been like way delayed.
That's true.
As well,
but we're basically right after that. The women save them. We're at basically my favorite scene in the movie, the memory game scene, and it's because it's very similar to why I like the other scene earlier where we see.
Because it gave you so many Twitter likes.
Because I got so many Twitter likes. No, because Tagore, the earlier scene with her in the kind of we see her in her meditation place, I guess, and we see like him learning about her in that way. The memory game's kind of another example of that, of basically like how it reveals so much, like basically on what the characters say about the what they say, what names they say, kind of tells us about them, you know, and like even how she's even playing the game. And there's this article I read by Steve Feinberg on this movie, and he wrote this really interesting thing where he says Ray's often compared to Renoir and De Sica, two lyrical realists, and he says, quote, "Realists generally rely on the device of the significant object, which has two purposes. As a concrete image, it's emissary from the real world, and it can operate as a symbol. As a realist symbol, it borrows its power from a recognition of how objects as souvenirs of our experience can take on extraordinarily emotional potency. As a dramatic device, it can reveal multiple layers of meaning to expose the hidden reserves of the characters." And he says, for example, the earrings of Madame Day, or the bicycle in De Sica's Bicycle Thief. Basically saying how those objects work in that. But then he compares it to the Days and Nights, where he says Days and Nights contains only one such symbol, Hardy's wallet, but Ray uses it ironically and melodramatically, as if he were deliberately throwing it away, even throwing away the idea of so easy a symbol. Instead, he draws on something intangible to carry the weight a real significant object usually does. It's a game that the four men and the two women play at a picnic, a celebrity game that reveals as much about the characters as a whole short story by Chekhov or Joyce. And like their stories, keeps shrouded in mystery as much as it reveals. And I really love that. Like, basically, it reveals more about the characters, but then makes you also like want to learn more about them, like why they're saying those names in the first place. And like obviously, like especially Western audiences won't know all the names they're saying, and even Ray's like playing with some of your expectations, like what names they're even saying specifically, because like one of them says Helen
Of Troy?
and then one of them asks Helen of Troy or Helen of Bombay,
Yeah.
but they never actually correct them and makes it known. Or actually, they say Helen of Troy.
Helen of Troy.
Helen of Troy. No, because there's another example of two where
there was
the Shakespeare. There's like a Shakespeare. You don't know if they're talking about the character or something. I forget all the names. I had them written down, but I thought I'd written them down by then. Either way, just like even the names, like oh yeah, I do. Marx, Tagore, Cleopatra, Atulia Ghosh, Helen of Troy, Shakespeare, Mao Zedong, Don Bradman, Ronnie Rashmani, Bobby Kennedy, Tekchen Thakur.
Kennedy was the other one.
She
said Kennedy, and he was like, "Which one?"
Yeah, Bobby or John. Yeah. He's like Bobby. I don't even know all these names too, but it just gives you like the Mao Zedong. Like I said, Ray's in the notes at the beginning. He says like this guy had like both of them had political leanings in their past. You kind of say like he says Marx and Mao. Like these are the kind of names that just come to his mind naturally, you know. And then also, this is more where Asteroid City reference comes in, is like the way he does this one shot of the camera spinning.
Yeah.
It reminds me a lot of the Charlotte shot, where it's like, this is where style meets the story is so important to me, where it's like, you don't just like swing a camera for no reason, or like put it on a swing for no reason, or like just do it because it's cool. It's like, to me, it has to feel like it fits like what the story is or what the scene is trying to do. And like both of those, like in Charlotte, the swing scene kind of represents almost this whole scene, you know, like just like that idea flowing and like kind of how she's feeling in that moment. It's very similar to this one. It's like, even though like he actually doesn't even use the shot that much to even shoot the whole memory scene, but in my head when I look back on it, it's like that's how the whole scene feels. It's like the way the camera kind of just like shifts one by one, like as it's like in the middle and it's like shifting almost like a robot from each character as they say the names, you know. It's just such a perfect way to like kind of shoot the names, and also kind of showing the camera detached too, you know. It's not focused on any one character, it's kind of showing all of them. And then it cuts to like right after memory game, it cuts to them on the Ferris wheel and they're at this the fair, and this is kind of like basically how the movie's gonna end, where they go to this fair and then the couple split off, and this is where you could say like the two kind of major moments in the movie happen with these two couples of I think Ray in my head is like trying to contrast them, like how each men deal with them, because the first one is we could talk about is the ex-wife, or not ex-wife, the wife who had her husband die, and like in a way she's kind of been the more confident one. She's kind of been hitting on the glasses guy, and you can tell the glasses guy's been interested, but he's like he's not confident, I guess. Ray even says basically that like he's not, like I said in the notes, like he's not a very confident guy.
Yeah.
He's probably gonna arrange marriage someday, you know. Like because Ray's kind of making this comment like he says this earlier in like his one of his, I forgot where he said this, but he said something like he's making a comment where like middle class Bengali men at the time, he says, were very like timid, you know, like and he says the women were ones that were way more confident and kind of like more progressive, you know, and he's like the men were kind of like more in this kind of timid, conservative, you know, back and forth, I guess he would say, I guess, and he's kind of, that's why he's showing him through this character, and like, because he basically is kind of scared of her sexuality in a way. I think that's the whole point of like this scene, like she appears like all of a sudden that she's like really dressed up, you know, she's like wearing jewelry and like kind of just like shocks him, like he doesn't know how to deal with it, and
So we've gone down differently. No, I'm just kidding.
But let me read, because in that Raymond Ballor, Murray Redonay letter correspondent, let me read, because it was really beautiful what he said. He said, quote, "I think it was I who stopped suddenly at the scene that was hiding beneath what we had discussed before, like how one stops before an evidence. I told you that we had just witnessed one of the most violent scenes of desire that cinema has ever offered." And then he kind of talks about how like basically how they both saw it differently, because you know he's talking to a woman in the letters, and how he says like how his reaction to it was like basically like he says, "I told you how when confronted with certain bodies that are too strange but whose strangeness is fascinating, a kind of imaginary madness opens up. I guess everyone has his own, which he recognizes the day it happens." And he says like, this happens to implant even more by the otherness of Indian women, because he's writing as a French critic, you know, this kind of like desire he says he's not like normally seeing, and kind of like shocked him. And then she says, from a different, you obviously wouldn't have thought of like from this perspective of, basically she says, quote, "You told," she said, "a woman can offer herself like that only in order to not be taken. She remains in her mourning, where she bears tragically, which she exhibits, to the point of obscenity. This excess she indulges in is what protects her. This excess in which the other is nothing, can't protect himself into, for she desires him in a dead man's place, as though to prove to him that he has no place there." And I had never even thought about that until she had said that, this idea of like, maybe she's like overdoing it on purpose, you know, to kind of like almost prove she's gone over it, but like almost like that's proof that she hasn't, you know, maybe in a way, something like that. And then like he kind of ends this letter of like where he says, "The harrowing magic of the scene, which we must see again to know more about, at least on the means of producing such a shock, could be in not letting either the man or the woman who are trying to talk about it like us decide whether there's a shade of comprehension or an opacity in what surfaces and dramatically stops between a man and a woman, whether either of them is aware of the horror they provoke in the other, or whether these two horrors simply coexist in a space that has become either way unbearable. And I love that. Like, it basically does. It's never really explained. Just like it's like an interaction. Like he says, like these horrors happen and like they coexist and that they just depart. There's no explanation and like it's kind of a very shocking scene in the movie. And I'd kind of like dismissed it the first few times, but to me it's really important because it's juxtaposed to the other scene with Chatterjee and Tagore where they're talking like next to this tree. To me, like in my head, it was like very like Antonioni-esque at the time because I just watched him when I first saw it. It was like just like the way it's shot too, these kind of wide shots and like just like open backgrounds behind them as they're talking.
They're kind of like wandering through like
yeah. And this is where like I think he's contrasting how the glasses guy just handled his relationship with a modern woman, of like he can't handle it, and this is like the opposite, where at least someone Chatterjee is willing to kind of hear what she's saying, where like she says like I can tell you've never really been through anything serious, you never had any sudden shocks in your life, but yeah, it kind of it's a more I've seen some complaints, like even some of the stuff I was reading, like this is the one negative part of the movie, of like how he's suddenly willing to kind of accept her and like not offer any resistance, of like maybe he like it's like this idea of like it's not this easy to convince men, like he would have had some resistance, but to me that's why I think it's contrasted with the other two characters we just saw, but yeah, that's basically the end of the movie. The last scene is basically I love how the movie like starts with them driving into the forest and ends with them leaving. And then also I think in my review I said something like how like Ray never forgets about the gatekeeper, because like I've been emphasizing this whole time, like the gatekeeper multiple times says like how the wife is sick. The only person we even see talk about the gatekeeper concerned is Tagore in the movie. So I love how the movie ends with like Ray's camera at least focused on the Tagore, gatekeeper closing the gates and stuff, like kind of showing how like the camera's gaze is different than the character's gaze in the movie, and that kind of like confuses people. Like Ray even had this quote like how he was taking a risk of days and nights because usually audiences have a single character they focus on, or he says Bengali audiences, and I was like, you're talking about American audiences, man. Audiences. He's like, usually they have a single character to focus on, and they know that's who we're cheering for, and this one doesn't have any of that. It's very critical of all the characters, or at least the men anyway. But yeah, that's Days and Nights in the Forest.
Feels reminiscent of Buñuel, honestly, too.
Interesting.
I'm just thinking about them walking, just like wandering around walking.
Okay,
it's just like it's very reminiscent of what Discreet Charm is that whenever they're just walking on the highway, like.
It is fun. I can see exactly what you're saying. The only thing is like Buñuel just like he doesn't even never have like as much as Ray's characters and even this one are kind of empty and vapid. He could just never reach Buñuel level of like having just a character that's like not a character,
I think that's why you don't like the hero as much, for sure, because like the more that you were talking about the hero, the more I was thinking of like that Discrete Object, because that it really is a very similar movie, just like these two guys recounting their story on a train essentially and not learning anything by the end of it. But
okay. I like that.
Or you said Discrete Object, that's funny.
Or sorry,
that Discrete Object.
Did I say Discrete Object?
He's combining them. Whoops, pulling a Dany,
Let me end this episode by Ray's quote on this movie, where he says, quote, "The compromising of Ashim's intellect, who's Satyajit Chatterjee's character, and the moral despair of Joya are both indications of the emptiness of the generation represented by the four boys from Calcutta." And I think that's a good way to summarize Days and Nights. One of my favorites. Please restore this soon. Yes. If you're listening, who's the guy that runs Criterion?
It shouldn't be Janice that restored it.
Janice.
Criterion doesn't really restore.
But they pay for some. I thought they did something with the Apu trilogy anyway.
But I thought that was through Janice.
But they
and through the world, it was the World Cinema Project too. The Scorsese kind of.
I think they're part of it. They're part of them at least.
It's like a partnership thing.
Okay, Janice. Either way, someone.
Anus Films.
Whoa.
And
Who's
next
like
week,
Janice. And we remove the J. It's like Janice. It's funny. Sorry.
but yeah, next week we're doing. I read the Wes Anderson quote at the beginning about his favorites being the Calcutta trilogy. We're doing 2 from that one, The Middleman and The Adversary. But yeah, until next week, hope to see you floating through the clouds.